In a grand, echoing library, a young man named Douma stands with a heavy heart, bracing himself for the words he knows are coming. The man behind the desk looks at him with a knowing gaze, asking if he understands why he has been summoned. A smug, condescending smile spreads across the official's face as he reminds Douma of his prestigious position as chief royal court mage. He claims that losing such a talent is a great disappointment, but his expression betrays his true, cruel satisfaction. Suddenly, the official throws his arms wide in mock celebration, his voice booming with false joy as he announces that Douma has been reassigned. Hearing this, he can only sigh in defeat, wondering what will become of his life now. Douma stands frozen in place, his eyes wide with utter shock. This is not the outcome he was expecting at all. The official clarifies the situation with a cruel smile, explaining that he isn't being fired, but rather exiled to the distant frontier of Rhodocina. A triumphant laugh escapes the man's lips as he mockingly asks if Douma has any final words. Looking down, he simply says he has nothing left to say. But then, a breathtaking, genuine smile explodes across Douma's face. His eyes are filled with pure, uncontainable excitement. He joyfully declares that a reassignment is exactly what he wanted, imagining a peaceful new life surrounded by kind and gentle people. He remembers the dream he once had, symbolized by the shining emblem of the royal court mages, an elite group serving the royal family directly. Becoming one of them was the ultimate goal for every aspiring magic user, a near impossible feat achieved by only a handful of the most brilliant minds in the kingdom. But as he gazes out the window, he recalls the bitter truth. The dream he chased for so long had turned into a dull and unfulfilling reality. He had worked so hard to become the chief mage, only to find a world of backstabbing, sabotage, and meaningless experiments. After 5 long years, even the glittering capital had lost its shine. His fall from grace all began on one fateful day. He couldn't stand by and watch a department head cruelly bully a junior mage any longer. The enraged man, furious at being challenged, prepared to incinerate their priceless research with dark magic. A small, wicked flame appeared in the corrupt man's hand, threatening to destroy everything they had worked for. So, Douma took matters into his own hands. He now looks down at the unconscious official, admitting to himself that perhaps a headbutt was a little extreme. Back in the present, he leans out of the carriage window, screaming to the world that he is finally free. He is ecstatic to finally have the time and peace to pursue the research he truly loves. A voice from behind suddenly warns him that it's dangerous to lean out of the window like that. One of his guards, a man named Kane, asks why he is so excited to be sent to a remote backwater like Rhodocina. Douma pulls his head in, slightly embarrassed. A map reveals the long journey ahead, showing the tiny village of Rhodocina nestled deep in the frontier, a 2-week journey from the royal capital. The thought of such a rural, isolated place brings a secret smile to his face. It sounds absolutely perfect. Kane, the kind-hearted swordsman, tells him to just relax and enjoy the ride. Another guard, a spear user named Arius, assures him that their group, the Silver Wing Travelers, will keep him safe. A young archer named Rui proudly adds that as B-rank adventurers, they are more than capable. A winking rapier user named Lilia points out that with 5 of them, they are a formidable force. And a burly axe user named Orin confidently declares that no one would be foolish enough to attack them. Douma smiles, genuinely reassured by their confidence. But merely 30 minutes later, the proud adventurers stand together, bruised, battered, and grim. Bandits have surrounded them. Their leader mocks the adventurers, sneering that their high rank means nothing against superior numbers. Kane glares at the bandit leader, his eyes burning with fury. The bandit moves like lightning. He strikes Kane down with a single, powerful blow. The bandit leader stands over him, warning him not to mistake them for common thugs. With a greedy smirk, he announces their intention to take the fancy carriage and everything inside. Inside, Douma grumbles to himself, regretting his decision to buy such an expensive carriage now that his savings are on the line. His expression hardens. His eyes narrow with resolve. He had hoped to let the guards handle this, but he realizes he can no longer stand by. A small light begins to glow at his fingertip. In an instant, a massive, glowing magic circle erupts from the ground, shocking the bandits. Giant golems made of solid rock rise from the earth, their monstrous forms terrifying the unprepared thieves. The bandits scream in terror, wondering what these creatures are and who could have summoned them. One of the golems turns towards them, its dark, featureless face promising destruction. Sitting back in his seat, Douma thinks to himself that this should be enough to resolve the situation. But then, horrifying screams from outside make his blood run cold. He realizes he may have overdone it. Kane stands in the middle of the carnage, looking back at the carriage in utter disbelief. He asks if Douma was the one responsible for all this. Peeking out the window with a look of pure terror, Douma desperately denies everything, insisting it must have been someone else. The adventurers stare at the travel request form, which clearly states they are escorting just one passenger. They then look at another line on the form: 0 mages. They are all completely baffled. Seeing their injuries, Douma cheerfully offers them a healing scroll, explaining that anyone can use it. Kane is astonished, recognizing it as an incredibly rare and valuable item. Douma just shrugs, saying he can make one in a few seconds. Kane stares at him, an intense, determined look on his face. He asks Douma if he would consider joining their adventuring party. Douma immediately and firmly refuses, claiming he isn't nearly strong enough. He thinks to himself that he is on the verge of his slow life dream, and joining a party is the last thing he wants. At last, they arrive in the town of Gruden. Kane tells him this is where they part ways, and he'll have to find another carriage to Rhodocina. Douma thanks them for everything, but Kane humbly says they didn't really do anything to help. As Douma walks away, Kane calls out, telling him to be sure to thank the mysterious mage who saved them if he ever finds him. The air is chilly here, and he decides the first thing he needs is a warm room at an inn. He spots a sign for the Komarebi Inn and decides to head inside. He opens the door and a gust of wind sends leaves swirling around him as he calls out a polite greeting. His eyes are immediately drawn to the sight of a girl in a frilly white skirt. A beautiful girl with reddish-brown hair turns to face him, a staff in her hand. He is instantly mesmerized. The innkeeper welcomes him but tells the girl to wait a moment. She then asks him to close the door. He snaps out of his daze, flustered. Inside, he finds himself in a bizarre argument. The girl asks if he truly has no money, and he nervously asks if that's a problem. She warns him that if he's joking, she'll call the guards. He quickly realizes there's been a terrible misunderstanding. He observes her more closely, noting her fine clothes and her age. She is clearly an adult in this land. He then spots a familiar, noble crest on her luggage, but before he can place it, the girl suddenly faints, collapsing right into his arms. He holds her, completely shocked and confused by the sudden turn of events. She looks up at him, her eyes hazy and her face flushed, looking beautiful and vulnerable. The innkeeper sees them in a compromising position and assumes they are a couple, suggesting they share a room. Just then, a loud rumbling sound fills the awkward silence. The girl's face turns beet red. It was her stomach. A massive feast is soon laid out before them. The girl eats with incredible gusto, her cheeks puffed out with food. After she has devoured 6 entire servings, Douma sits across from her, sighing at the cost of the meal he just paid for. He finally asks why she has no money and then asks for her name. With wide, innocent eyes, she introduces herself as Laura. He introduces himself as Douma, feeling a strange awkwardness as he clears away the mountain of empty plates. Laura explains that she simply didn't think she would need money, as she never has before. He forces a smile, but in his mind he is screaming that her excuse is impossible. As he looks at her, his magical senses tingle. Something is wrong. He uses his power to see her mana and is horrified to find it completely blocked and tangled by a powerful curse. He knows he can't ignore this. He decides that for a curse this simple, a single flick of his finger should be enough to shatter it. He casually flicks his finger in her direction. Laura looks at him, puzzled by the small gesture. A tremendous burst of invisible power erupts from her body, shaking the entire room. Douma stares in awe, realizing this is her true, unsealed mana. It's a volume of power that surpasses even his own. Laura looks down at her hands, confused but feeling strangely light. She realizes a massive amount of power had been sealed inside her. She tells him she feels much better now, admitting she's felt strange for a while. He is amazed that she never even noticed she was cursed. This situation is far more complicated than he thought. He decides it's best not to dig any deeper and tells Laura to rest while he runs an errand. He arrives at the Adventurers Guild only to be told by the cat-eared receptionist that all travel to Rhodocina is suspended. He asks why, but she just nervously explains that there are circumstances. He grows frantic, saying he must get to Rhodocina, but she refuses to explain further. Suddenly, a scream from outside cuts through their conversation. Douma turns toward the door, alarmed. A bandit bursts in, demanding everyone's valuables. The guild girl realizes this is the reason all travel has been stopped. She explains that a new gang of bandits has been terrorizing the town and no one can find their hideout. Douma realizes these must be the same men who attacked his carriage. He wonders why the town guards can't handle them. Just then, the bandit leader points directly at him and shouts with recognition. The bandit recognizes him from their fight in the forest and vows that this time he won't get away. Douma is stunned into silence, while the guild girl whispers that this is an impossible situation. A flashback shows the bandit leader effortlessly cutting down one of the town guards. He stands over his fallen enemies, mocking their weakness and boasting that he can defeat them whenever he pleases. Douma understands the gravity of the threat. He tells the guild girl that this man is incredibly powerful, even alone. The bandit remembers his training, recalling the orders he was given. The memory of a shadowy swordsman from the capital flashes in his mind, the true leader of his operation. Douma realizes with dawning horror that these are no mere bandits. If their leader is a former capital swordsman, he could destroy the whole town. A brave town guard steps forward to stop him, but the bandit dismisses him as nothing more than an annoyance. The bandit lunges, ready to deliver a finishing blow. Douma knows this is bad. He prepares to use his secret magic, seeing no other choice. But before the sword can land, Laura appears in a flash, effortlessly catching the bandit's arm with her bare hand. Douma's eye widens in pure, unadulterated shock. He puts his hands to his face in a panic, shouting Laura's name and demanding to know why she isn't resting like he told her to. The bandit glares at the girl who stopped his attack, demanding to know who she is. Laura stares back, her expression calm and unyielding. She is not afraid. The bandit hears Douma use her name and turns his attention to him. He asks if they know each other, and Douma is too panicked to answer. Annoyed by the interruption, the bandit decides this has become too much trouble. He points at them, promising that he will remember their faces and that they are finished next time before retreating. The bandits vanish into thin air, leaving the townspeople frustrated that they've escaped once again. But Douma saw what really happened. They used invisibility magic, and he can still sense their trail. Laura notices his serious expression and asks him what's wrong. He groans in frustration. All he wanted was a quiet life, but trouble seems to follow him everywhere. In her office, the guildmaster of Gruden, a woman named Renizia Raoni, sighs wearily. The guards have been beaten again. Her head of magic, Rodar, reports that the damage was minimal this time, thanks to the intervention of a brave young girl. However, he warns that the bandit leader has now marked the girl as his next target. Renizia grows deeply concerned, thinking that the girl is the same age as her own sister and is now in grave danger. She decides she must take action herself. She stands, declaring that she will join the search and support it with her magic. Rodar warns her that their enemy is a skilled swordsman from the capital, but she replies confidently that she was the runner-up at the Magic Academy. She knows she's second best and wishes the top student were here, but as guildmaster, she feels the duty to protect her town rests on her shoulders. With fierce determination, she gives the order to prepare for deployment. She will protect her people. In a dark cave filled with treasure, the bandits have returned to their secret hideout. The bandit from the guild reports to his boss that while they failed to get any loot, they successfully crushed the town guards. The boss is revealed, a powerful, stern-faced swordsman with light hair. The bandit shows off a ring, explaining that it's an invisibility ring from the capital that allows them to vanish. His boss asks where he got it, and the bandit admits he stole it from a royal court mage. He then gestures to the cave's entrance. A swirling magical barrier completely conceals their hideout from the outside world. The combination of the rings and the barrier makes them completely undetectable. The bandit turns to his boss, a question burning in his mind. He asks why a powerful man from the capital would team up with them. In response, his boss slams his massive sword into the ground. The bandit falls silent, instantly regretting his question. The sword's tip is embedded deep in the stone floor. The boss speaks, his voice low and dangerous. He asks if they truly believe they are any different from the corrupt nobles in the capital. His words ignite a fire in his men, who cheer and roar their approval. He grips his sword, satisfied with their loyalty. But then his eyes narrow. He looks past his men to the entrance and asks who is hiding behind them. The ground before the bandits cracks and crumbles into a dark pit. A huge chasm opens up in the floor of their hideout. Douma steps out of the darkness, calmly complimenting the boss on his sharp senses. The bandits are terrified, demanding to know how they were followed and how they also have an invisibility ring. The boss glares at the intruders, his voice a low growl as he demands to know who they are. "Just a passing mage," Douma replies calmly. Laura appears beside him, her sword at the ready. "And a passing swordsman," she adds. The enraged bandit leader screams for his men to attack, but Douma is prepared. A brilliant, multi-layered magic circle erupts around him, freezing the bandits in shock and awe. He explains coolly that while he dislikes fighting, he can't let them go now that they've seen his face, and he doesn't like people misusing his inventions. He unleashes his magic, and a wave of force blasts through the hideout, knocking out the entire gang in an instant. He explains that it was a complex spell, a multi-layered array of 2 stacked magic circles. He looks down at the defeated bandits, thinking to himself that using only 2 layers is nothing to brag about, and that he held back his power. The bandit boss stares, recognizing the spell from the capital. He asks if Douma is from there too. "Former," Douma replies simply. "Just like you." The boss explodes with rage, shouting that if he's from the capital, he must know how rotten it is. He screams in anguish that the kingdom's protectors are driven by greed, while those who stand for justice are cast out. Douma looks at him with sad understanding. He admits he was also cast out for the same reason, but says he must defeat him to continue his journey. The boss rejects his pity and charges, screaming at him not to mock him. Laura moves in a flash, her sword raised to intercept the attack. She tells him that being a bandit is wrong and that capital swordsmen are supposed to be heroes. Her words enrage him further. He screams, asking what she could possibly know about them. He smashes his fist into the ground, shattering the rock around them with his raw power. He roars that his pride and his former self died the day the capital betrayed him. He declares that he is now a ghost, sworn to become the kingdom's calamity. Douma watches with sympathy, but knows this fight is unavoidable. A tiny pebble, kicked up by the force, flies through the air. It hits the charging swordsman squarely on the forehead. The mighty warrior is knocked unconscious by the single tiny stone. Laura looks down at his defeated form, her resolve firm. She delivers a powerful kick, sending his body flying. As he soars through the air, she declares simply that bad things are bad. The clasp on the boss's cape shatters from the impact. Douma looks down at the fallen bandit and suggests that instead of seeking revenge, he should try to enjoy a second chance at life. Laura turns to Douma and thanks him, saying his actions were just what she'd expect of a royal knight. He is stunned that she knows his secret. He then points to the crest on her sword's scabbard. The emblem is the unmistakable mark of the Royal Knights, the kingdom's most powerful military unit. He wonders why a royal knight is here, realizing now why even a former capital swordsman was no match for her. Laura explains that she, too, was reassigned. Douma is shocked to learn their circumstances are the same. She then reveals that her destination is Rhodocina. Laura's face lights up with a hopeful smile, but Douma's heart sinks. His dream of a quiet life alone is officially over. Standing on the road together, he worries about his journey, thinking that his slow life has begun, and it's anything but slow. Back in Gruden, Guildmaster Renisha rallies her adventurers, vowing to subdue the bandits terrorizing her town. She raises her hand, ready to give the order to depart. But she freezes, her eyes wide with disbelief at what she sees in the town square. The entire bandit gang has appeared out of thin air, tied up and unconscious. Rodar explains that they were transported by powerful magic, but he has no idea who could have done it. From a hidden vantage point, Laura watches the scene and giggles to herself. The defeated bandit boss awakens. He smiles, thinking that if people as powerful as a royal mage and a royal knight are here, maybe there's still hope for the kingdom. He recognizes the magical bindings as the work of a royal court mage. Renisha stares at the pile of defeated bandits, unable to comprehend what has happened. Later, Douma walks through the town, looking completely exhausted. He explains to Laura that he's not physically tired, but mentally drained from having to suppress his magic to avoid killing the bandits. The townspeople around them are celebrating their capture. As they walk, Douma comments that it's much harder to fight non-lethally. Laura doesn't seem to understand what he means. To avoid the growing crowd, he suggests they head back to the inn. Laura agrees but says she wants to visit the bathhouse first to wash off the dust from their fight. She then innocently suggests that they should go in together. Douma freezes, his face turning bright red. He stares at her, completely unable to process her suggestion. They arrive at the changing room of the bathhouse. A moment later, Douma is in a full-blown panic as Laura begins to get undressed right in front of him. She calmly reminds him that she has no money and can't go in alone. He finally finds his voice, asking why they are still in the same room even after getting inside. She explains that she's used to bathing with her sister or fellow knights. Seeing a sign that the owner is out, she thinks it's fine. Seeing his discomfort, she holds up the invisibility ring and suggests they both wear one so they can't see each other. Douma looks away, blushing furiously as he considers her strange proposal. A moment later, Laura puts on the ring and completely disappears. Her invisible voice cheerfully tells him this is fun. Defeated, Douma agrees to get in. They enter a beautiful, stone-lined outdoor bath. Though they are both in the water, the rings make them invisible to each other. Douma is still bright red with embarrassment. He desperately tries to calm himself down, repeating in his mind that they can't see each other. He tells himself to act normal, that it's totally fine. But when he looks in her direction, he sees a horrifying, slimy, monster-like figure instead of a person. He internally panics, wondering what kind of creature is in the bath with him. While Laura relaxes peacefully, she playfully pours a bucket of water over her head. She giggles, telling him that he looks like a monster too, and he yelps in surprise. Laura spots a bar of soap on the edge of the bath. She asks him to pass it to her, and he reluctantly agrees. As he hands her the soap, their invisible hands accidentally touch. Douma lets out a piercing shriek of pure panic. He apologizes profusely, but Laura simply thanks him, completely unbothered by the accidental contact. After the ordeal, Douma looks completely and utterly drained. He wonders how a bath could be more exhausting than a real battle. Laura, refreshed, says she'll wait for him outside. He finds her a little later, sitting by a well in the town square. She is eating a skewer of grilled meat, and he asks what she is doing. She replies that she is people-watching. A strange glint in her eye makes him think her hobby is a little creepy. He asks where she got the money for the food. She explains that a stranger gave it to her for the festival. He immediately scolds her for accepting things from strangers. Noticing her hair is still wet, he uses a bit of magic to dry it, telling her she'll damage her pretty hair. She looks up at him with sparkling eyes and gives him a sweet, genuine thank you. Her smile makes him blush, and he quickly looks away. He suggests that since they are traveling together, they should drop the honorifics and just use their first names. She completely misunderstands, thinking he's referring to them being naked together in the bath. He screams in frustration. After clearing up the misunderstanding, they agree. He calls her Laura and she calls him Douma, and they head back to the inn. That night he lies awake, his mind racing with confusing new feelings for the girl sleeping peacefully in the other bed. A new day dawns over the town of Gruden. Laura wakes up, stretching happily. She wishes Douma a good morning, but he looks like he hasn't slept at all. He tells her he's going back to the guild to see if the travel request to Rhodocina is available now. At breakfast, they agree to split up for the day. Laura playfully warns him not to follow strangers. Douma makes his way through the town back to the Adventurers Guild. The cat-eared girl greets him happily and apologizes for the chaos from the day before. He asks if everything is back to normal, and she confirms that it is, thanks to some mysterious heroes. She gushes about the amazing royal court mage and royal knight who saved the town, telling Douma he should learn from them. He just laughs nervously. He asks about the Rhodocina request, and she asks for his adventurer card. He hands it over, admitting it's only D rank. The girl's eyes go wide with shock. She tells him his card is not just expired, but 2 generations old. He explains he was working as a royal court mage and asks to renew it. She says he has to retake the test from the very beginning. The only way to avoid the test is to have a guarantor, but Douma sadly admits he doesn't know anyone here. The girl looks at him with such pity that he feels utterly humiliated. He reluctantly agrees to take the test and pays the 1 gold coin fee, resigning himself to starting over as a lowly F rank. The guild girl cheerfully leads him down a hall, telling him the test will only take a few minutes. She stops at a door, announcing that the head of the magic department will conduct his test. The door slides open, revealing the person inside. Rodar, the man from the guildmaster's office, introduces himself. His eyes widen in recognition as he sees Douma. Douma politely introduces himself, unaware of the connection. Rodar stares, completely dumbfounded. He asks Douma to wait and quickly excuses himself, pushing up his glasses. He slides the door shut, leaving Douma and the receptionist confused. Douma stands in the hallway, wondering what is happening. Rodar returns and informs him that the guildmaster wishes to see him personally. The cat-eared girl panics, grabbing Douma and demanding to know what he did. He insists he has no idea. As Rodar leads him away, the girl whispers a worried farewell, telling him to come back alive. He is led to a room that is completely pitch black inside. His relaxed demeanor vanishes instantly. He grips his staff, sensing a powerful magical trap. His eyes narrow, scanning the impenetrable darkness. He realizes this isn't just a dark room, it's a magical domain of darkness. He cautiously tests the darkness with his boot, and it ripples like black water. A tendril of shadow shoots out from the floor, trying to grab him. He dodges the attack with lightning speed. A hand made of shadow lunges at him from the wall. He leaps into the air, casting a light spell to illuminate the magical prison. He lands, noting that the spell didn't damage the room at all. This confirms it's an isolated magical space, created by a very skilled user. A volley of sharp, dark projectiles flies at him from every direction. He prepares a powerful defensive spell, his face hidden in shadow. An incredible multi-layered shield of glowing magic circles erupts around him, deflecting every single attack. He catches a shard of the broken magic and calmly asks if this isn't a bit harsh for a simple test. The entire domain of darkness shatters like broken glass. Behind the illusion stands Guildmaster Renisha. She smiles and tells him that he passes. Then she addresses him by a name from his past, Douma-senpai. He stares at her, completely shocked. He struggles to remember her face. She reminds him that he once challenged her with this very same magic when they were at the academy. The memory finally clicks. He asks if she is Ran from the Magic Academy, and she confirms it has been 6 years. She explains that she recognized his unique magic from the way the bandits were captured and had Rodar watch for him. He asks what she would have done if he'd been the wrong person, and she jokes that they probably wouldn't have died. A flashback shows a tiny 12-year-old Douma easily besting an 18-year-old Rauna, who always saw him as her ultimate rival. He is flustered by her praise, insisting that becoming a guildmaster is a far greater achievement. She says he has changed from the fiery rival she once knew, the prodigy who was 6 years her junior. He asks if she set up this whole elaborate test just to reminisce. Her expression turns serious. She tells him she needs his help with a matter concerning her younger sister. She opens a door, revealing Laura. Douma is stunned to learn they are sisters. He remembers Laura mentioning a sister and asks if they knew each other this whole time. Laura innocently explains that they only just met, but then adds that they bathed and slept together, causing Ran to pale and Douma to scream at her to watch her words. Laura's innocent. Words send her older sister, Rauna, into a magical frenzy. Rauna screams Laura's name, preparing to attack Douma, who frantically tries to calm her down. Unaware of the chaos she caused, Laura simply adds, "Douma was kind, you know?" Raun finally composes herself. She decides to postpone Douma's punishment for now and gets to the real reason she wanted to see him. She asks him to lift a curse that has been placed on her little sister. While Laura happily eats a plate of snacks, Raun explains that a powerful curse is suppressing Laura's magic and has cut her physical abilities in half. Laura was so innocent, she didn't even notice it. Raun continues, explaining that because of the curse, Laura was demoted. They were desperate because even professional curse breakers couldn't remove it. In response, Douma casually says, "In that case, I already removed it." Raun stares at him, completely frozen in shock. She can't believe it. "Eh?" she exclaims. "Even for you, senpai, it shouldn't have been that simple." Douma just shrugs and explains that it was bothering him when he met Laura yesterday, so he just took care of it then. To prove his point, Douma lightly flicks Laura on the forehead. Rauna rushes over to her sister and checks her neck. The dark mark of the curse is completely gone. She is stunned, realizing that Douma accomplished something that she and a team of experts couldn't. Laura, rubbing her head, just complains that her big sister is scary when she's angry. Douma gets flustered by the praise, trying to downplay his incredible feat by saying he's not anything special. Raune finally puts all the pieces together. She understands that both Douma and Laura were unfairly demoted and sent to the remote village of Rhodocina to live a quiet life. As a thank you for saving her sister, Raune promises to arrange safe and comfortable travel to Rhodocina for them. However, she has one small request in exchange. She asks Douma to accompany her sister on the journey and take care of her. Douma hesitates. His goal is a quiet life, and he knows that if the person who cursed Laura finds out the curse is broken, she could be in danger again. But he also thinks that as a powerful royal knight, she can probably protect herself. Seeing his hesitation, Raun gets angry, thinking he is calling her precious little sister trouble. Douma quickly stammers that's not what he meant. With tears in her eyes, Raun pleads with him, asking him as a sister to please protect Laura. Moved by her sincere love for her sister, Douma closes his eyes and agrees to her request. Rauna is overjoyed. She claps her hands together and says they will leave the very next day. Douma, looking a bit overwhelmed, stammers that he will be in her care. Rauna then gives him a very serious warning. If he dares to lay a hand on her sister, she will kill him. Douma flatly promises he won't do anything like that, but his quick promise only makes Raun angry again. Huh? Are you saying my sister isn't charming? She demands. Douma is completely exasperated, having no idea how to answer. Raun laughs, telling him she was only kidding. She reaches out her hand and sincerely asks him to please take care of her precious sister. Douma looks at her for a moment before firmly taking her hand. Sure, he says. They shake hands, sealing the promise. Rauna wishes them both a safe journey to Rhodocina. The next morning, bright sunlight shines down on the town of Gruden, signaling the start of a new adventure. A very energetic adventurer with long red hair and a big smile stands before them. Morning, she shouts. I'm Yorbi, an A-rank adventurer. You two are the clients this time, right? Her booming energy is a lot to handle so early in the morning. Douma manages a weak smile, while Laura politely introduces herself. Yorbi promises that with her as their escort, the road will be perfectly safe. Yorbi tells them to hop into the carriage, as it's going to be a long journey. Once inside the carriage, Laura calls out to Douma. She holds out 2 skewers of grilled meat, thanking him for listening to her sister's request. Douma accepts the food and thanks her in return. Douma's expression becomes serious and determined. As their carriage rolls out of town, Douma thinks to himself that since he accepted this job, he will see it through properly. His thoughts are interrupted when he notices Laura's snack, and he once again scolds her for accepting food from strangers. Half a day into their journey, Yorbe mentions that no one ever wants to travel to Rhodocina, who chose the place specifically for its remoteness, is curious. He asks what she means. Yorbe grins and explains that it's because Rhodocina has the 3 Ds. She lists them off. It's dangerous, distant, and desert-like. Laura looks surprised to hear this about their destination. As if to prove her point, Yorbe adds that strange things tend to happen on this road. Just then, the carriage jolts to a stop. Outside, the enormous, long neck of a giant creature rises from a lake blocking their path. It is a massive land dragon. Yorbe calls it the bathing land dragon, but Laura recognizes its species name, a Susponsuki. Douma is surprised that such a giant monster has such a cute-sounding name. The giant Susponsuke continues to relax in the water, completely blocking the only road forward. Yorbe explains the problem. Susponsukes are famous for taking very long baths that last for about 3 days. They are completely stuck. Douma frowns, clearly not interested in waiting around for 3 days. He calmly decides that they have no choice but to defeat the dragon. Yorbe and Laura are shocked by how casually he suggests fighting the giant beast. Yorbe tells him that even as an A-rank adventurer, her attacks wouldn't even leave a scratch. Douma turns to Laura and asks if she can take its head off in a single strike. She says she can, but it's too high for her to reach. Douma nods, already forming a plan. He tells Laura that he will create an opening to make the dragon stumble, and she can handle the rest. He kneels, ready to cast his magic. With her orders clear, Laura leaps into battle. She moves with blinding speed, effortlessly dodging the dragon's massive tail swipes and stomps. The ground shatters from the dragon's power, but Laura uses the flying debris as stepping stones, dancing through the air to avoid every attack. Yorbe watches in awe, admitting that she would be struggling just to dodge, while Laura looks like she isn't even trying. Douma, still preparing his spell, notes that Laura's movements are making the dragon unstable. He grabs a handful of earth, quickly analyzing its composition. He confirms that it's perfect for the spell he has in mind. With his hands on the ground, he unleashes his magic with a powerful cry. Activate! A massive magic circle glows beneath the land dragon. The spell instantly turns the solid ground into a deep, muddy swamp. The giant dragon roars in surprise as it begins to sink. But Douma isn't finished. He casts another, even more complex spell. A beautiful staircase made of pure light forms in the air, creating a path from the ground all the way up to the dragon's neck. For his final move, he casts a powerful buffing spell on Laura, making her even stronger. Laura feels the surge of new power and looks up, ready. The dragon roars as she dashes up the magical staircase. In a flash of silver, Laura's sword slices cleanly through the air. "I'm sorry," she whispers. The massive dragon's head is severed in a single, perfect strike. Laura watches calmly as her powerful attack finishes the beast. She stands for a moment on the platform of light, high above the ground. Both Douma and Yorbi are left completely speechless by the incredible display of power. Wow, Yorbi manages to say, her mouth wide open in shock. With the battle over, Laura begins to fall from the sky. Douma calmly creates another magic circle on the ground, which catches her and lets her land safely. Yorbe is completely overwhelmed. "Who exactly are you two?" she stammers. Laura introduces herself with her official title, Royal Dame. Yorbi freaks out, realizing she is traveling with a member of the legendary Royal Knights. She then turns to Douma, asking who he is. He just smiles and says he's just an average, everyday mage. The name finally clicks for Yorbi. She remembers the legends. "No way! Are you actually Dame Laura of the Shining Light?" she asks with excitement. Laura confirms that she is. Yorbi is so thrilled that she immediately asks for and gets an autograph. As Laura signs her name, Yorbe asks Douma if royal mages have cool titles too. He disappointedly tells her that they don't. Now that the dragon is defeated, they have to deal with the giant body. Yorbi asks what they should do, and Douma says to leave it to him. He pulls out a magical device that looks exactly like a modern smartphone. He explains that it's a tool for long-distance communication, and that they can use it to call a merchant to sell the valuable dragon parts. The merchant offers them an incredible 250 gold coins for the materials. Yorbe is ecstatic, shouting that it's a whole year's salary for her. Douma, however, looks horrified. He recognizes the magical tool as something he designed as a simple independent study project when he was just 10 years old. Yorbe, not noticing his distress, offers to introduce him to the shop where she bought the expensive device. Douma can only sigh. As evening falls, the group sets up camp, while Laura and Yorbe go too. Bathe, Douma gathers firewood, relieved that he doesn't have to go through another awkward bath experience with Laura. Later, they sit around the campfire, sharing stories. Laura learns that Yorbi didn't come from a rich or noble family. She then notices something on Yorbi's cheek and gently wipes it off. The conversation turns to personal lives, and Yorbi reveals she has a partner. She then pulls out her magic phone and shows them a picture of a handsome animated man, declaring that 2D men are the absolute best. She quietly adds that 2D men will never betray you. Finding the conversation too much of a hassle, Douma decides to just ignore it. The next day, their journey continues, and Yorbi shows off her impressive skills by easily defeating a group of monsters that attacks their carriage. After the incredible fight with the dragon, the rest of the trip is peaceful. Yorbe handles any other threats with ease. She blushes, saying it's embarrassing to fight in front of two such powerful people, but Douma and Laura are genuinely impressed by her A-rank skills. Finally, they reach a clearing and see a small village nestled in the valley below. "I see it!" Yorbe shouts. "That over there is Rhodocina." Douma and Laura look out at their new home for the first time, their eyes wide with a mix of surprise and curiosity. The village is bigger than they expected, with charming houses that remind them a little of Gruden. As they say their goodbyes, Yorbe thanks them for the wonderful journey, saying she feels like she gained a little sister in Laura. Douma thanks her for her help. Laura then announces that she's hungry. Yorbi says she is heading back to Gruden after she sells some much-needed supplies at the local guild. She advises Douma and Laura to head to the guild first to find a place to stay. They follow her advice and soon find themselves standing in front of an old wooden building. Douma looks at the dilapidated building with a frown. "This is the Rhodocina Guild? It's falling apart." he says. They walk towards the rundown guild hall, which stands alone on the very edge of the village. They push open the old door and step inside. The interior is just as rough as the outside. It's filled with a motley crew of adventurers who all turn to stare at the two newcomers. Douma groans, already feeling a headache coming on. This is not the peaceful start he was hoping for. A stern-looking man with pointed ears and dark markings on his face approaches them. He says he doesn't recognize their faces and asks if they are adventurers. Douma steps up to the counter and hands the man their identification papers, explaining that they wish to settle here. The man studies their papers carefully. His stern expression breaks into a warm smile. "The paperwork seems to be in order," he says, extending a hand. "Welcome to Rhodocina, comrades. I'm Bast." As they shake hands, Baston asks if they have found a place to stay yet. Douma says they just arrived and would like a place that is large, sturdy, and quiet. Baston then turns to ask Laura what she would prefer. She just agrees with Douma, prompting him to sigh and tell her to think for herself. Baston misunderstands, thinking they are a couple who want to live together. Douma immediately panics and shouts, "We are not!" while Laura looks on calmly. Baston laughs and says it was just a joke. But then his expression turns serious, and he tells them there is a problem. He explains that there are no houses available in Rhodocina at all. A terrible storm hit last month, and monsters took advantage of the chaos to attack the village, destroying over a dozen homes. Douma is in despair. An adventurer sitting nearby confirms the bad news, adding that even if they started building a new house today, it would take at least 6 months. Douma's shoulders slump in defeat. His dream of a quiet life seems to be falling apart already. "Nothing at all," he mutters. Just then, Baston's eyes light up. "No, wait," he says. "There was one place." He tells them about a large abandoned manor called the Forest Mansion on Ghost Hill. Its owner died years ago, but strange things happen there. Lights turn on by themselves, and anyone who tries to tear it down gets hurt. Douma is terrified at the thought of living in a haunted house, but Laura's eyes sparkle with excitement. "Sounds fun," she says. Douma frantically protests, arguing that it's obviously a haunted house and that the two of them living together would cause all sorts of other problems. But Laura just looks at him with big, sad, pleading eyes and asks, "Is it a no?" Douma finds himself unable to say no to her cute face. Defeated, Douma tells Baston they will take the mansion. Laura quietly cheers while one of the other adventurers gets ready to lead them. There, the adventurer guides them out of the guild hall. They begin the short walk to the mansion. Laura, as usual, starts to complain that she is hungry. As they walk down the path, Douma senses something and calls out into the woods. A tough-looking young man with spiky red hair and a scar over his eye steps out from behind a tree, blocking their path. He sneers at Douma, calling him a pathetic mage pretending to be a real adventurer. The man introduces himself as Grotzo, a member of a group run by a man named Klaus of the Combat Arts. Douma wonders what a member of this combat arts group could possibly want with them. Grotzo explains that anyone who wants to live in Rhodocina has to pay his group a tribute fee. Douma calmly asks what will happen if he refuses. Grotzo laughs, threatening that they won't last long in the village if they oppose his group. Douma simply thanks him for his concern and turns to walk away, completely ignoring the threat. Grotzo is left speechless by his calm defiance. Grotzo glares at Douma's back, his hands clenching into fists. "This is why I can't stand mages," he growls. He explodes in a fit of rage, drawing his sword. He yells that ever since a mage stole the girl he liked, he has hated all magic users. Douma senses the man's killing intent and glances back, ready for a fight. But just as the tense showdown is about to begin, a very loud rumbling sound echoes through the quiet forest. The sound came from Laura's stomach. "I'm hungry," she says, breaking the tension. Grotzo is so flustered that he gives up on the fight. He storms off, shouting that he will tell his boss, Klaus, about them and that they had better remember what happened. As they continue on their way, Douma wonders what that was all about. He thinks to himself that hating all mages because of a past heartbreak is a very petty reason. As they get closer to their destination, the sky above them turns dark and stormy. The path ahead becomes more overgrown and spooky. Douma looks up at the dark clouds. "So that's Ghost Hill," he says, noting how the weather suddenly turned bad. While Douma is nervous about the creepy atmosphere, Laura seems to be having a great time, looking around with a brave and excited smile. They finally arrive at the forest mansion. It is a huge, imposing building that looks exactly like a haunted house from a scary story. Douma grits his teeth, trying to look brave. "This is more authentic than I thought," he admits, sweating a little. The title, "The Secret of the Haunted Mansion," appears over the spooky image of the house. "Well, there is no use just standing around," Douma says, trying to hype himself up. "Let's go inside." But as he turns, he sees Laura nervously giving a little salute. "Huh?" he asks. Laura quietly says that she has changed her mind and will wait for him outside. Douma is furious. "Why?" he shouts. "You were the one who said this place would be good." Laura admits that now that they are here, she is scared after all. Douma refuses to go in alone. "I won't allow it," he says, grabbing Laura and physically dragging her towards the front door. The heavy doors creak open, revealing a dark and dusty grand foyer inside. Douma looks around nervously, trying to act cool. "The inside looks the part too, doesn't it?" he says. "Now, I wonder what will appear." Laura points towards the top of the grand staircase. "It glowed," she says simply. A small flickering ball of dark, ghostly energy materializes out of thin air. "Whoa, what is that?" Douma stammers, startled. But Laura looks at it with a strange sense of recognition. A faint, ghostly voice echoes through the hall, whispering a single command: "Get out." The voice multiplies, coming from all directions as more shadowy blobs of energy appear, all chanting, "Get out." The ghostly power intensifies, lifting heavy pieces of furniture into the air. Douma reacts instantly, grabbing Laura and leaping out of the way just as a heavy wardrobe crashes down where they were standing. "Whoa!" he shouts, surprised by the ghost's power. He suddenly feels a jolt of pain. Terrified, Laura is clinging to his arm with all her might. "Hey, Laura, let go!" he yells. "Ow! Ow! Ow!" They are both sent flying as another piece of furniture is hurled at them. They land in a heap on the dusty floor, surrounded by the chanting voices and floating furniture. Douma gets to his feet, annoyed. "It can't be helped," he says. "I didn't want to wreck our new home, but I suppose I have no choice but to fight back." He looks over at Laura. To his surprise, Laura has gotten up and is walking calmly towards the source of the ghostly voices. Douma calls out, warning her that it's dangerous, but as she gets closer, a look of recognition crosses her face. "How cute," she says, her voice full of warmth. "Cute?" Douma thinks, completely confused. How could she find that creepy voice cute? He focuses and listens more carefully. He realizes that Laura is right. Behind the spooky echo, the voice sounds like a very young girl trying her best to sound scary. Douma uses his magical senses to inspect the mansion itself. He is shocked by what he discovers. The entire building isn't just covered in magic. The magic is the mansion. The ghost seems to get angry at being discovered and unleashes a powerful wave of energy. The room is filled with a blinding white light. The magic swirls harmlessly around Laura, who stands completely unfazed. Douma decides they need to find the core of the magic that is creating this illusion. "Shall we look for it?" he asks Laura. He quickly forms a plan. He tells Laura that the magic is too complex for him to unravel quickly, so he will focus on suppressing the attacks while she uses her own senses to find the source. A small glowing halo appears above Laura's head as she activates her ability to sense magic. She immediately finds the source and points down a long, dark hallway. She leads them to the end of the hall, where they find a single door. Douma uses his magic vision and sees that the source of the mansion's power is concentrated behind the door, forming a complex magical lock. He prepares to start the long and difficult process of untangling the magical lock. But before he can begin, Laura decides to take a more direct approach. With a mighty swing of her sword, she smashes the magical lock into pieces. "What are you doing, Laura?" Douma shouts, horrified. "Just because you wondered doesn't mean you should use physical force." She calmly replies that she was just curious if she could cut it. They both stare at the door, which is now unlocked. The door swings open, revealing a stone staircase leading down into darkness. At the bottom of the stairs, they find another door with a nameplate on it. The nameplate has fancy, old-fashioned writing on it. Douma reads the nameplate, "Elinaze and Nicola's room." He senses that the magic is strongest here and warns Laura to be careful. But Laura, as reckless as ever, simply grabs the doorknob and opens the door. "Oh, it opened," she says casually as Douma panics behind her. A bright, gentle light shines from inside the room. The room is a cozy-looking workshop, filled with books and magical tools, and sitting in the very center of a desk, glowing with a soft, warm light, is a small, cute teddy bear. Douma stares in amazement. "It is a house spirit," he says. Laura asks if it's a boggart. Douma explains that a boggart is a spirit that is born in a home filled with love. Over time, it merges with the house itself, and its only purpose is to protect its home and its master. He gently picks up the teddy bear. He holds the small, soft toy in his hands. As he holds it, his expression turns to one of shock. "Laura, help me," he says, his voice filled with urgency. "What should I do?" He explains that a boggart is supposed to disappear when its master dies. However, some remain if their love for their master and home is incredibly strong. He tells her that this little spirit has been all alone for years, using its own life force to protect the house, waiting for a master who would never return. They both look at the small teddy bear with sad eyes. They can feel that its magic is almost completely gone. It is dying. Douma says that they might be able to save it by pouring their own magic into it, but it will only work if the boggart willingly accepts them as its new masters. Laura reaches out and places her hand over his. "I want to save it," she says with determination. Douma nods. "I know." They stand before the glowing boggart. Douma speaks to it gently, telling the spirit that they want to help it. "So please," he says, "let us in." They stand in silence, waiting for the spirit's answer. The warm glow around the teddy bear fades away. Douma notices that the magical energy in the room has changed, but he's not sure how. The teddy bear is gone. With a heavy heart, Douma realizes that their attempt failed. They walk sadly up the stone stairs, back towards the main part of the mansion. Douma explains that the entire house was made of the boggart's magic. If it had been at full strength, it could have even moved the whole mansion. But instead, it stayed here, waiting. With the boggart gone, its magic will soon fade completely, and the magical mansion will vanish. "It is a shame," he says, "but let us withdraw." As they reach the top of the stairs, Laura stops and looks around in wonder. The dusty, dark, and spooky foyer has been transformed into a bright, clean, and beautiful hall. "Was this place always this beautiful?" she asks. The threatening, ominous atmosphere is completely gone, replaced by a feeling of warmth and peace. Douma is completely bewildered. What is going on? He wonders. Just as Douma and Laura are trying to understand the mansion's sudden transformation, a sweet, cheerful voice calls out, "Were you surprised, Master?" A young girl with blonde hair tied in twintails and wearing a perfect maid outfit appears before them, a friendly smile on her face. She stands proudly, her hands on her hips, looking like she's ready to get to work. Douma and Laura are completely shocked. Who is this child?" they ask in unison. The little maid scolds Douma, telling him that he is the one who wandered into her house and did reckless things to her. Douma is completely confused. He quickly turns to Laura, trying to explain that he didn't do anything, but Laura just stares at the maid, a look of understanding on her face. Laura reaches out and gently pats the maid's head. "The stuffed toy," she says. The maid lets out a happy little squeal. The maid giggles, happy that they've figured it out. Laura can sense that the girl has the same magical power as the boggart they found in the basement. The girl holds out the edges of her skirt in a perfect curtsy and proudly introduces herself. "I am Nicola. I am the boggart of this house and the perfect maid." Douma is relieved that their attempt to save the spirit worked. Nicola explains that because they poured their magic into her, she was able to regain her original human form. She then turns to Douma and asks, "So, who is this master?" When Douma hesitates, Nicola's eyes fill with tears. "Is it no good?" she cries. "Is Nicola going to be all alone and die again?" Laura gives Douma a stern, disappointed look. Douma quickly reassures her. He explains that they intend to live in the house, but he feels it might not be right to become her new master when she was so loyal to her previous one. Nicola goes quiet for a moment, her head bowed as she thinks about his words. She remembers her beloved former master, a kind witch named Elinaze. She understands now that Elinaz has gone on a long journey and will not be coming back. Nicola looks up with a bright, determined smile. She says that Lady Elinaze will always be her precious master, but now she has a new duty. With a deep and formal bow, she declares that her new pride will be to serve Lord Douma and Lady Laura, the ones who saved her life. Laura is so touched by Nicola's devotion that she sweeps the little maid up into a powerful, squeezing hug. Nicola looks up at Laura, a little dazed but happy to be accepted. Laura, now her official master, tells Nicola she understands and accepts her service. Then, she has her very first request. She announces that she's hungry and wants to have some tea and snacks, since they haven't eaten properly since arriving. Nicola's face lights up with pure joy. Nothing makes her happier than serving her masters. Yes, absolutely, she cheers, eager to begin her duties in her beautiful, restored home. And so, the new, strange life of the former palace mage, the royal knight, and the ancient house spirit begins with a happy tea party in their grand new home. After settling in, Douma reflects on how his plan for a quiet life led him to a magical mansion on the outskirts of the village. He explores the basement workshop left behind by the mansion's previous owner, Elinaze. Looking through her notes, he is stunned to discover that she was a brilliant witch whose research was decades ahead of its time. Nicola proudly boasts that her former master was the greatest witch in the world, so powerful she built the entire mansion in a single day. But strangely, her name and accomplishments have been completely forgotten by history. As night falls, Douma ponders the mystery. Why would the existence of such an incredible witch be completely erased? The next morning, a cheerful Nicola greets him. "Good morning, master." Douma, dressed in simple sleeping clothes, thanks her, saying he slept wonderfully thanks to her excellent bed-making skills. He tells Nicola to continue preparing breakfast while he goes to wake up Laura. The story explains that Nicola is a phenomenal cook. The previous night, Laura devoured a mountain of food, which moved the little maid to tears of joy. For Nicola, being able to cook for someone with such a healthy appetite is a maid's greatest happiness. Taking care of Laura is proving to be a very rewarding job for Nicola, and Douma is just happy to have her around to help. Douma goes outside to find Laura already awake. She is in the middle of her intense morning sword practice. Douma is blown back by the sheer force of her movements. He watches in awe as she moves like a blur, her sword, cutting through the air with incredible speed and power, creating powerful gusts of wind. He realizes this isn't just a simple practice routine. It's a real battle form, far beyond a simple sword dance. As he concentrates on her movements, he can almost see a phantom opponent clashing swords with her, feeling the impact of a battle that isn't really happening. He understands with a new level of respect. This is the intense, dedicated training of a royal knight. Laura finishes her practice with a final powerful slash, standing calmly as the energy settles around her. "Good morning," Douma says, applauding her. "That was amazing. Can all royal knights do things like that?" Laura explains that actually, she was the only one in the royal capital who trained so intensely. Everyone else used to think she was weird. Changing the subject from her weirdness, Douma uses a bit of magic to create a cool, refreshing towel and offers it to her. Laura just stares at the towel blankly. Douma awkwardly asks if she wants him to wipe the sweat off for her. She ignores the towel and announces that she wants to take a bath, once again inviting him to come with her. "No!" he screams. He frantically explains that if the villagers found out he was bathing with two girls, his reputation would be ruined, and he'd be in serious trouble. He shudders, remembering how Nicola had tried to join him in the bath the night before. He then recalls why he came out here in the first place. "Breakfast is ready," he says, trying to get her to focus. "So I came to call you." The moment she hears the word breakfast, a huge explosion erupts in the forest. In her excitement for food, Laura has accidentally unleashed a powerful finishing move, carving a huge trench in the ground and destroying a patch of trees. After their eventful breakfast, Douma prepares to head into the village. Laura and Nicola see him off. Laura correctly guesses that he is going to the guild to report about the mansion and Nicola. She suggests that Nicola should go with them. Nicola happily explains that as a boggart, she is magically bound to the house and cannot leave. She promises to guard the mansion splendidly while they are away. Douma and Laura arrive back at the Rhodocina Guild Hall. Baston listens to their report about the mansion. He is pleased and thanks them, explaining that he had suspected a boggart was the cause of the rumors. Douma asks what he means by assessment. Baston says that he knew from the start they weren't mere F-rank adventurers, as he could clearly sense Laura's immense, overflowing magical power. As a reward for solving the mystery and as a welcoming gift, Baston officially gives them the mansion and all its surrounding land. Douma is so overjoyed he can barely speak, and thanks him profusely. Douma then remembers his other reason for visiting. He tells Baston about being harassed by Miento on his way to the mansion. Baston's expression darkens. He explains that Klaus is an old friend of his, and he would never order someone to extort villagers. He becomes concerned that Grozzo is using his friend's name to threaten people. Since his duties prevent him from leaving the guild, Baston asks Douma if he would do him a favor and go check on Klaus for him. Douma sees the genuine worry and seriousness in Baston's eyes. His mind screams in protest. This is exactly the kind of troublesome situation he came to Rhodesina to escape. He is about to politely refuse, but Laura, with her strong sense of justice, immediately accepts the request on his behalf. Trapped, Douma has no choice but to agree as well. Baston thanks them, relieved. Laura notices Douma's pained expression, but he forces a smile and pretends that nothing is wrong. To prove the request is from him, Baston gives Douma a beautiful locket containing a picture of a lovely woman with pointed ears. When they ask who she is, Baston blushes proudly and says it's his wife. Douma and Laura set off for the eastern part of the village, a place called the Poison Swamp, where Klaus lives. Douma is already regretting accepting another troublesome quest. He can't help but think that for a supposedly peaceful village, Rhodesina has an awful lot of ominous-sounding locations. Along the way, Laura gets distracted by some pretty flowers. She asks if she can pick them, but Douma, wanting to get the mission over with, tells her there will be no detours. They finally arrive at the edge of a large, murky-looking swamp. To their surprise, the Poison Swamp is actually quite beautiful. Laura, who ignored Douma and picked the flowers anyway, holds up her bouquet and admires the scenery. As Laura steps closer to the water, Douma shouts for her to wait. A loud, angry voice roars from the trees. "You idiot!" A sharp, heavy object, an axe, flies through the air past Douma's head. The axe lands right in front of Laura, exploding on impact and knocking her backward. Douma rushes to her side to make sure she's all right. A figure emerges from the forest. An incredibly muscular man with long blonde hair and a beard stands before them. He angrily shouts at them, asking if they are trying to get themselves killed and warning them to stay away from the swamp. Douma and Laura are completely taken aback by his sudden, aggressive appearance. Just then, the beautiful flowers in Laura's bouquet instantly wither and turn to black dust. The man explains that the entire area is deadly poisonous. Not just the water, but the air and the ground as well. He points out that not a single plant grows near the water's edge. He says that he keeps watch over the swamp to protect ignorant travelers like them from wandering in and dying. Realizing the man just saved Laura's life, Douma thanks him sincerely. The man calms down and apologizes for yelling. He introduces himself as Klaus. Douma introduces himself and Laura. He thinks to himself that Klaus seems like a good person, not the villain Grozzo made him out to be. Just then, Klaus points out that Douma dropped the locket. Klaus picks up the locket and looks at the picture inside. His expression instantly changes from friendly concern to cold recognition. He turns back to them, his friendly demeanor completely gone. Douma explains that Baston asked them to deliver the locket and check on him. At the mention of Baston's name, Klaus's face twists into a mask of pure rage. Douma is completely shocked by his sudden and violent reaction. Klaus draws his sword, mistakenly believing they are working for Baston. He growls that if he had known, he would have let the swamp kill them. "Prepare yourselves," he says, his voice low and dangerous. He charges at them with incredible speed and power. Douma quickly raises his hand to create a magical barrier, knowing that a weak, half-hearted spell won't be enough to stop this man's ferocious attack. However, Klaus possesses a unique and dangerous ability. He can actually see the flow and structure of magic, allowing him to spot any weaknesses. "Too naive," he scoffs, seeing Douma's hastily constructed barrier. Instead of a single powerful strike, he unleashes a flurry of attacks that look like a whirlwind of steel, targeting the weakest points in Douma's magical defense. Douma watches in horror as his powerful barrier shatters like glass around him. He realizes with a surge of panic that this is very, very bad. He has never met a non-mage who could break his magic so easily. He is left completely defenseless as Klaus's weapon closes in. But at the last possible second, a flash of silver appears. Laura has moved with blinding speed to intercept the attack, her own sword blocking Klaus's powerful strike just before it can hit Douma. Laura calmly tells Douma to stay back as she prepares to face Klaus. Douma shouts Laura's name, worried, but she stands her ground, ready to protect him from Klaus's powerful assault. Klaus is impressed. He compliments Laura on being able to see through his complex attack and block it, but he wonders how long her slender arms can hold out against his superior strength. Klaus's eyes narrow as he prepares to press his attack. Laura meets his gaze with equal intensity, not backing down for a second. A bright flash signals the start of their duel. Their swords clash in a furious exchange of blows, sending sparks flying in every direction. Klaus pushes forward with incredible force, but Laura meets every single one of his powerful attacks with her own, matching him blow for blow. The force of their battle creates a shockwave that blasts outward, flattening the grass around them. Klaus continues to attack with a fierce expression. Laura parries his strikes, her face calm and focused. Their blades meet again in a powerful clash. Douma watches from the sidelines, completely amazed. He knows Klaus is a legendary warrior, yet Laura is fighting him on even terms. Klaus grunts with effort, beginning to feel the strain of the battle. He lets out a small, almost crazed laugh, clearly enjoying the challenge of fighting such a skilled opponent. He swings his sword with all his might, but Laura effortlessly blocks it, her expression unchanged. Their battle rages on with incredible speed. In a surprising move, Laura ducks under one of Klaus's swings and delivers a swift kick to his side. As the fight continues, Douma notices something incredible. While Klaus is starting to slow down, Laura is actually getting faster with every exchange. Laura's eyes narrow as she prepares to end the fight. With a final, decisive strike, she disarms Klaus, sending his sword flying through the air. She stands over the defeated warrior, her own sword pointed steadily at him. Laura has won. Douma is so impressed he can't help but clap. "So cool," he whispers. Klaus clicks his tongue in frustration. He admits that it's been a long time since he's had such a serious fight. He tries to save face by saying he must be getting old to lose to a little girl, but Laura bluntly corrects him. "It's just that I'm too strong," she says, without a hint of arrogance. Hearing her simple, honest statement, Klaus bursts into a hearty laugh. He sits on the ground, defeated but happy. He admits he lost and praises Laura for a splendid fight, saying he feels great. Douma is completely confused by his sudden change in mood. "What the hell is going on?" Douma thinks, bewildered. Klaus leads them back to his small, simple cabin in the woods. He opens the door with a loud bang. Now dressed in a simple cloak, Klaus's entire demeanor has changed. The wild rage is gone, replaced by a calm, friendly presence. He apologizes for attacking them, explaining that he wasn't actually trying to kill them. Douma is relieved, noting that the atmosphere is completely different now. Laura confirms what Klaus said. She could tell from his attacks that while his magical power was incredible, he had no real killing intent. Douma asks why he attacked them so fiercely if he didn't want to hurt them. Klaus promises to explain everything. Douma guesses it has to do with the adventurers who were using Klaus's name to cause trouble. Klaus confirms this, explaining that those men used to be his students. He tried to stop them himself once, but he was defeated. Douma is shocked to hear that someone as strong as Klaus could lose. Klaus explains that it was a 2-on-1 fight, and his former students were being backed by two mysterious and incredibly powerful individuals. He tells them that these two powerful figures are a royal knight and a royal court mage. The image of Laura and Douma flashes in his mind. He explains that he was waiting for Bastion to make a move, and since Bastion sent them, he assumed they were strong and used the fight as a test of their abilities. Douma is annoyed that Bastion didn't tell them any of this. Having confirmed their strength, Klaus's resolve is hardened. He has a message for Bastion. He tells them to let Bastion know that the next time he should come himself instead of sending others to do his work. As they leave Klaus's cabin, Douma thanks Laura for saving him. He notices she is unusually quiet and thoughtful. Laura puts a hand to her chin, a curious expression on her face. "That person, maybe he can't see?" she wonders aloud. Douma is confused by her strange question. Back at the guild, Bastion confirms Laura's suspicion. Klaus is, in fact, blind, and it's the reason he came to live in Rhodocene. Bastion explains that Klaus is a famous war hero, known throughout the kingdom as Klaus of the Combat Arts, for defeating 100 giants in the Battle of Garmusha 10 years ago. Douma thinks back 10 years and realizes that at that time he was being put through torturous training by his own master. He asks how Klaus's blindness is connected. Bastion explains that after the war, Klaus lost his eyesight. He fell into a deep despair and was exiled, arriving in Rhodocene 2 years ago, where he now manages the dangerous poison swamp. Douma is overwhelmed. The man who fought Laura so incredibly was not only a war hero, but was also completely blind. He realizes Klaus is an exile, just like them. Baston calls out to Douma, startling him. He thanks Douma and Laura again, saying that now that they know the situation, he will handle the rest. Douma then asks a question that's been bothering him. If Klaus is blind, what was the point of giving him the locket? Baston explains that it was a wedding gift from Klaus and that he knew his old friend would recognize it by touch. Meanwhile, in a dark, secret location, a mysterious cloaked figure uses a crystal ball to watch Douma. A man reports to the cloaked figure, saying that Douma and Laura just look like ordinary adventurers. The figure replies that even so, they must give them a warning to stay neutral. The man bows and agrees to follow the royal court mage's command. The cloaked figure scoffs. The figure is revealed to be the same corrupt department head that Douma headbutted back in the capital. Grazzo's report about Douma's arrival in Rhodocina was a lucky break. He knows Douma is no mere F-rank adventurer. The corrupt mage stares into his crystal ball, his eye glowing with malice. He declares that Rhodocina is now his territory, and this time, he will be the one to take everything from Douma. His hatred for royal magician Douma burns intensely. The next day, back at the mansion, Nicola runs frantically through the halls calling for her master. "Master! This is terrible!" she cries, her voice filled with panic. She bursts into Douma's workshop. The room explodes in a flash of light and smoke. When the smoke clears, Nicola screams in horror. All that's left of her master is a pile of black ash on the floor. As Nicola lets out a blood-curdling scream, Douma's body begins to reform from the ash. He asks what's wrong. He calmly explains that he was just in the middle of a magic experiment that went wrong. He had already cast a regeneration spell on himself, so he's perfectly fine. Nicola is so relieved she bursts into tears. "That's not the problem," she cries, grabbing his hand. "Something terrible has happened. Please, come to the garden." The mansion's beautiful garden is completely overgrown with strange, puffy mushrooms. Nicola sobs, pointing out that all her precious vegetables have been taken over by the parasitic mushrooms. She had even given them all names. In a fit of rage, she declares war on the mushrooms, vowing to show them the fury of a boggart. Douma gently pats her head, telling her to calm down. He tries to think logically about what could have caused this. Nicola is convinced the mushrooms came from hell just to mock her, and Douma thinks to himself that she might be surprisingly close to the truth. Using his magic senses, he discovers that the mushrooms are pulsing with magical power, something he has never encountered before. Nicola, with swirls in her eyes and sharp little teeth, declares that she will get her revenge. Douma has to physically hold her back, telling her that a boggart life of revenge is futile. He realizes he needs help to trace the source of this strange magic. He turns to Laura, but she just stares at him blankly and pokes his cheek. Douma heads outside to investigate. He plans to trace the magic, but he quickly realizes it won't be necessary. A very obvious mushroom road leads away from the mansion and into the forest. He admits he doesn't know much about mushrooms, but he notes that some of them look colorful and tasty. As he unconsciously reaches for one, Laura suddenly grabs his wrist, stopping him. He asks what's wrong, startled by her sudden action. He looks down and realizes with a jolt that his hand was about to touch one of the strange mushrooms. He doesn't even remember reaching for it. Laura tells him firmly that mushrooms are dangerous. She grabs his hand and starts pulling him along the path, telling him they need to go quickly. As they walk, a new day begins. Douma becomes very aware of the fact that Laura is still holding his hand. He can feel her warmth and her breathing, and it reminds him that despite her incredible strength, she is still just a girl his age. He starts to get flustered. He shakes his head, telling himself not to get carried away by the mood. Laura looks at him, confused. He starts to wonder about the mood. He notices a strange, sweet scent in the air, coming from the millions of mushrooms around them. He wonders if the scent is making his head feel fuzzy and causing him to be so conscious of Laura. He is so lost in thought that he bumps right into Laura's back when she suddenly stops. "Looks like we're here," she says, looking straight ahead. Douma looks up, surprised that they've already reached their destination. As they follow the path, they come to a clearing and stop in their tracks. Before them stands a mushroom so enormous it towers over the trees like a mountain. Douma is speechless, stammering that the mushroom might be even bigger than their mansion, but Laura holds up a hand, telling him to wait. A large, gray wolf suddenly appears on the path in front of them, growling defensively. The wolf seems strangely agitated. Instead of attacking, it looks around nervously before running off into the bushes. Douma wonders what's going on. As it runs, the wolf begins to whimper and shake uncontrollably. It stops directly at the base of the giant mushroom. In a horrifying instant, the mushroom's stalk releases a cloud of spores, and the wolf completely dissolves into dust, which is then absorbed by the giant fungus. Douma screams in shock, watching as the giant mushroom seems to grow even larger after consuming the wolf. Douma breaks out in a cold sweat. He realizes that the sweet scent was a trap, meant to lure in creatures like the wolf and himself to be absorbed as nutrients. He thanks Laura for stopping him from touching the smaller mushroom earlier, but the danger isn't over. Another wolf, this one's fur a ghostly white, emerges from the woods and stalks towards them. It gets into a low, aggressive stance, ready to pounce. As it gets closer,
They see the horrifying truth a small spotted mushroom is growing directly out of
the back of the wolf's head. Douma looks around and sees that they are surrounded by a whole pack of these mushroom-controlled wolves. He warns Laura to be careful. Two of the infected wolves leap into the air, lunging straight for them, but they are no match for a royal knight. Laura moves in a blur, her sword flashing as she effortlessly cuts down the attacking wolves. She lands gracefully between the two falling creatures, not a single scratch on her. Douma and Laura stand back to back, ready to face the rest of the pack. Douma knows he has to act. He floats into the air, a complex magic circle appearing beneath him. He unleashes a powerful magical attack that slams into the ground, knocking the entire wolf pack off their feet. He realizes that the source of the wolves' strange behavior is the mushrooms on their heads, and the source of that magic is the giant mushroom. With a determined cry, he gathers his magic and fires a powerful beam of energy directly at the base of the giant mushroom's stalk. "Douma, it's working!" Laura shouts as the wolves around them begin to wither and collapse. "Yes!" Douma shouts triumphantly. He declares that he hates mushrooms and that they will be having mushroom curry for dinner. But as he prepares to finish it off, the giant mushroom begins to shrink at an incredible speed. It shrivels up until it's no bigger than a person, and in its place sits a tiny, adorable little girl with long hair and a mushroom cap on her head. She looks up at them with big, teary eyes. Douma and Laura are completely stunned into silence. The little mushroom girl's eyes well up with tears as she looks at them. Douma is completely bewildered. They stand in the now empty clearing, staring at the strange little creature. "Human!" she suddenly shouts, startling Douma. She immediately begins to beg for her life, pleading for the great and generous humans to forgive cute little Noko. Douma ignores her flattery and gets straight to the point, asking if she is the one who infested their garden. The mushroom girl, Noko, vehemently denies it. She proudly states that she would never infest the garden of a great human, but she did infest the garden of a lowly boggart, arguing that her flawless investigation showed no humans had lived in the mansion for hundreds of years. Douma deadpans that they have been living there since the day before yesterday. Noko freezes, realizing her investigation was not so flawless after all. As Douma points out her mistake, Noko begins to tremble with fear. She tries to explain herself, saying that she only grew the giant mushroom to spread spores so she could live comfortably. She claims it was all for survival. Noko asks if this means she is forgiven, but Douma, forming a ball of dark magic in his hand, asks if she would mind if they punished her with a stronger power. He tells her that apologizing to them isn't enough. In the background, a terrifying, demonic-looking Nicola looms, and Douma warns Noko that if she doesn't apologize to the boggart whose garden she ruined, Nicola will be lost to the dark side forever. Noko just scoffs at the idea of apologizing to a boggart. She proudly declares that she is a noble fairy and would never bow her head to a lowly boggart. However, she is cut off mid-sentence by Laura. Laura places a small, normal-looking mushroom on the ground and tells Noko to apologize to it. Douma is glad she understands the situation. Now that the issue is settled, they decide to head back to the manor. As they walk, Noko continues to grumble, saying it's ridiculous that a noble fairy like her was cornered by a mere human. Douma notices that she seems surprisingly energetic. He asks if she's not feeling well, wondering why she would be weak if she was at full power. Noko accidentally lets the truth slip. She admits that her parents recently kicked her out of her home. She found the lovely manor and decided to take it over. Douma realizes what's happening. "So that's why you've been snacking on my magic as we walk," he says. They finally arrive back at the mansion. Noko comes face to face with a furious Nicola, who is trembling with rage. Douma tells Noko that this is the dark side she created. "So you're the one who wrecked Nicola's garden," she says, pointing an accusing finger. "Unforgivable!" She lunges forward, screaming about revenge for her precious vegetables, and Douma has to hold her back. Noko, completely unapologetic, argues that mushrooms are a superior life form to vegetables. Nicola screams that there's no universe where that's true. The two fairies glare at each other, ready to fight. Douma and Laura watch, unimpressed, with Douma noting that this touching moment between fairies isn't very cute. Douma sighs and orders Noko to apologize, telling her it's the only reason they brought her here. Noko is genuinely surprised. "Wait, so I'm not forgiven yet?" she asks. Annoyed, Nicola glares at her. Noko continues to sulk. Suddenly, Nicola lets out a piercing shriek. "Nya!" she screams, finally losing her temper. Noko, terrified of the angry boggart, immediately changes her tune. "Don't stop me, master!" Nicola cries. "This one alone I can never forgive!" Noko announces that she has a better idea than apologizing. She will graciously live in their manor. She continues her argument that mushrooms are superior to vegetables. She boasts that with her power, she can grow crops far tastier than anything a mere boggart could manage, and new plants begin to sprout at her feet. She adds that if she lives there, she can feed off Douma's magic all she wants. Nicola immediately grabs Douma's arm, declaring that his magic belongs to her. The two fairies begin to fight over him. Douma sighs, miserable. He realizes they aren't fighting over him, but over his magic power. He wonders if there is anyone out there who actually wants him for himself. Just then, Laura announces that she's hungry again. Far away, back in the royal capital, a woman with long red hair and a maid's uniform shows a picture of Douma to an information broker. The broker doesn't recognize him. He notes that Douma is not registered as an adventurer in the city and should be working in the capital. The woman's companion, a mysterious figure in a dark, hooded cloak, almost lets slip that Douma is not an adventurer. They thank the broker and leave. Once they are alone, the cloaked figure says, "Jackpot. Let's move." They walk through the city streets, discussing how to find Douma. The hooded figure knows that with their current status, breaking into the royal palace would be a bad idea. A group of rough-looking men calls out to them. The leader says he knows the silver-haired magician they are looking for and offers to take them to him. The hooded figure is determined to find Douma, no matter what it takes. She agrees to their offer and tells them to lead the way. The men lead them out of the city and into a barren, spooky forest. The men surround the two women, laughing. They mock the high-born girls for being so naive as to follow them into a trap. They notice the maid and assume the hooded figure must be someone important. They decide to start with her. But the maid, whose name is Natalia, steps forward to protect her lady. "Stand back," she says coldly. "I won't let you lay a finger on my lady." The men just laugh at her bravery and grab her arm. "How troublesome," Natalia says, completely unfazed. She grips the man's wrist, and he cries out in pain. With a single, fluid motion, she flips him over her shoulder and slams him into the ground. The other men are shocked as strange, thorny vines suddenly sprout from the ground around them. Natalia reveals two sharpened, wand-like batons from her sleeves. She calmly introduces herself as Natalia, the lady's attendant and bodyguard, fully trained to handle emergencies like this. The men, furious at being outsmarted, charge at her. Natalia meets their attack with a flurry of strikes, easily defeating them. She stands over their unconscious bodies, victorious. She turns to her last opponent, the man who was holding her lady hostage. "That's enough," she says. "Look over here." The man is still holding his sword to the hooded figure's throat. He threatens Natalia, telling her to behave if she doesn't want her princess to get hurt. Natalia just looks at him with pity. "You're very unfortunate," she says. The hooded figure speaks for the first time. "If you had kept dealing with just me," she says, her voice low and menacing, "your injuries would have been much lighter." A powerful whirlwind of magic erupts from her, sending the man flying. The wind tears her dark cloak away, revealing a beautiful, elegant woman with long silver hair. Her wide, pointed witch's hat falls from her head. She catches the hat gracefully. "Men really are idiots, aren't they?" she asks with a confident smile. She looks down at the defeated man. She admits that she only followed him because she thought he might actually know something, but he was useless. "Who the hell are you two?" the man screams in terror. The woman creates a magic circle and sends a blast of energy at him. He is frozen in place, paralyzed by her magic. She smiles, a dangerous glint in her eyes. She says she's been dying to vent some frustration after her long trip, and he picked the wrong target. The man's eyes widen in absolute terror. A blood-curdling scream echoes through the forest. A short while later,
The woman questions the terrified man. He confesses that he was telling the truth. He saw a
silver-haired magician leaving the city a few days ago with a group of adventurers heading north. The woman realizes this is why she couldn't find Douma in the capital. She knows that north means he could only be heading to one of two places, Gruden or Rhodocina. She immediately decides to set out after him, but says she needs a new robe made first. Natalia tells her she doesn't need to hide her face and that she should be more aware of her high position. The woman smiles, revealing her true identity. Princess Alexandra! With a look of pure determination, Princess Alexandra declares, "Just wait for me, royal court magician Douma. I will track you down." We travel back in time, to a grand imperial palace basking under a cloudy sky, revisiting the moment when Douma's journey in the remote town of Gruden was just beginning. Inside a magnificent office, Emperor Yozil III lets out a long, dramatic sigh, openly complaining to his aides that he has absolutely no desire to attend an upcoming political event. He laments that the neighboring kingdom is being far too demanding with their invitation to a party celebrating the 10-year truce, but his stern attendant immediately questions her ruler's unenthusiastic behavior. A graceful, silver-haired young woman enters the conversation with a knowing smile, remarking that while diplomacy is important, the kingdom's true intentions for inviting her are painfully obvious. His attendant quickly realizes the implication, asking if this is about a political marriage, which the princess confirms is exactly the case, comparing it to sending a rabbit into a den of wolves. The emperor sweats nervously, trying to backtrack by claiming it was just a metaphor, while his attendant stares back, questioning if he truly just called Princess Alexandra a rabbit. Exhaustion weighs heavily on the emperor as he slumps over his desk, admitting that refusing the invitation would create diplomatic problems and wishing someone else could handle it for him. The attendant's patience finally breaks, and she sternly reprimands him, declaring that this is no way for a proper emperor to speak. Their argument is suddenly interrupted by a guard's urgent call from beyond the large doors, announcing an emergency that requires their immediate attention. A guard bursts into the room with earth-shattering news that sends a shockwave through the court. Princess Alexandra has eloped, leaving behind only a note in her room. The emperor, however, remains oddly calm. Revealing the note, simply says she is off to meet an old friend, and he deduces her bodyguard Natalia must be with her. His attendant begins to relax at the news, but her relief is cut short by a sudden, dawning horror as she remembers telling the princess about the marriage proposal just the day before. He tries to calm her down, suggesting they know exactly who she went to see, but this only infuriates his attendant more, and she shouts his title in pure frustration. For a moment, the emperor's expression grows serious as he thinks of one person, the brilliant mage Douma, his daughter's former classmate, and a man he secretly wishes was still in his service. The scene shifts forward in time as we arrive on the bustling streets of Gruden, where Princess Alexandra, now in traveling clothes, walks with unwavering purpose, her loyal attendant Natalia close behind. Onlookers whisper in awe at the sight of such a gorgeous woman, and Natalia notes how much attention they are attracting, though Alexandra seems unconcerned. The crowd also murmurs in admiration of Natalia's cool and beautiful demeanor, but she quietly pleads with them to be more discreet. Alexandra turns to Natalia with a playful smile, admitting she doesn't mind the attention, but her attendant quickly steers the conversation back to their urgent mission of finding Douma. Now serious, Alexandra acknowledges that asking the locals has been fruitless, so she decides their next step must be to find an adventurer who is familiar with the road to Rhodocina. As if on cue, Natalia spots a potential guide and calls out to get their attention. The person they stop is Yorbe, the energetic A-rank adventurer, who bluntly informs them she just returned from an exhausting trip to Rhodocina and is not taking on any new jobs. Her words are music to Alexandra's ears. She has found her lead. A wide, excited grin spreads across her face as she celebrates their incredible luck. Alexandra approaches Yorbe with a friendly smile, showing her a magical device displaying Douma's portrait and asking if the adventurer knows this man. Yorbe's eyes narrow with suspicion. and she refuses to give up any information without first knowing exactly what their intentions are with him. With a mischievous glint in her eye, Alexandra leans in and playfully suggests that she might just want to pull a little prank on her old friend. Yorbe's demeanor instantly hardens into a fiery glare as she declares that Douma was her traveling companion, and her loyalty to a friend is not for sale. She defiantly throws down a pouch of money, challenging them to try and take the information from her by force if they dare. As more money is offered, her resolve only strengthens, but Alexandra simply smiles, saying she admires people who are so cooperative and agrees to tell them what she knows. Yorbe is left utterly speechless as she stares at a bag overflowing with gold coins, explaining that she was personally hired by the guildmaster to escort a demoted royal court mage to Rhodocina. The title, Royal Court Mage, shocks Alexandra, but Yorbe continues, adding that he was traveling with an incredibly powerful royal knight named Laura. The news hits Alexandra like a physical blow. A dark, terrifying aura erupts from her as she processes the fact that Douma is traveling with another woman. Natalia calmly informs the terrified Yorbe that she has just stepped on her lady's personal landmine. Alexandra loses all composure, her voice trembling with rage as she screams about how he could be traveling with another woman while she was desperately searching for him. Her fury explodes in a massive dome of magical energy that cracks the very stones of the street around her. But her power is suddenly suppressed. She looks around, realizing she's been trapped inside a powerful magic barrier. She looks up to see a calm woman with long, flowing hair standing before her. The woman is Renesia, the guildmaster of Gruden, who informs the princess that while adventurers are welcome, she cannot allow such a disturbance. Yorbe gasps in shock, stammering the guildmaster's name in utter disbelief. Still seething, Alexandra gives Renesia a challenging smile, declaring that the guildmaster will be the perfect opponent to help her vent her frustration. Renesia accepts the challenge with a smile of her own, effortlessly conjuring a swirling vortex of magic. The two powerful mages face off, the air crackling with energy as they prepare for a spectacular duel. Their spells collide in a blinding flash of light, the force of the explosion shaking the entire city. When the dust finally settles, Yorbe stares in awe at the two women, standing completely unharmed. The tension breaks as Alexandra bursts into laughter, clutching her stomach, while Renesia and Natalia watch with amused smiles. A bewildered Yorbe can only comment on how much stronger the guildmaster has become, while Natalia tries to comprehend what just happened. Still confused, Yorbe asks the most obvious question. Do they know each other? Both Renesia and Alexandra confirm with a nod that they were, in fact, classmates back at the Magic Academy. They begin to reminisce, with Renesia teasing Sasha about her competitive nature, revealing that Douma was ranked first in their class, while she was second and the princess was third. Natalia wisely suggests they continue this conversation somewhere more private, and a completely overwhelmed Yorbe can only agree. Natalia then politely interrupts her lady once more. Pointing to their dust-covered clothes from the duel, she suggests it might be a good idea for them to clean up. The scene shifts to a serene hot spring, where Alexandra and Renesia laugh about how they got carried away after being reunited. Alexandra asks Renesia about hiring Yorbe to guard Douma-sensei, and Renesia chuckles, saying Douma was just as surprised to learn she was a guildmaster. But Alexandra's mood darkens as she asks about the other woman traveling with him. Who is this Laura? Renesia explains that Laura is her younger sister, who was also demoted to Rhodocina, which is why she asked Douma to look after her, much to Alexandra's immense relief. Intrigued, Renesia asks why an imperial princess would go to such incredible lengths just to find Douma. A playful smile returns to Alexandra's face as she prepares to tell them the whole story, which began 6 years ago. She flashes back to her younger, more arrogant days at the academy, admitting her pride was shattered when she met a 12-year-old prodigy named Douma. The memory shows Douma effortlessly defeating her in a duel, then advising her to stop causing so much trouble for everyone. But instead of mocking her, he offered a bright smile and declared that from that day on, she would be his servant, a moment that made her young heart pound. Back in the present, a blushing Alexandra explains how she became Douma's disciple, while Yorbe and Natalia comically point out the vast difference between a servant and a disciple. Renesia asks how any of this is connected to her running away from a political marriage, surprised her friend hasn't figured it out. Alexandra passionately lays out her grand romantic plan, a story of slowly earning his trust and respect, moving from servant to disciple. Her fantasy culminates in a love story for the ages, where they transcend their roles and are united forever, a destiny she believes is already written. As she daydreams of flying to his side, the scene cuts to Douma and Laura, who are facing a sudden and terrifying danger in the forest. A monstrous white tiger, larger than anything they've ever seen, lets out a ground-shaking roar that echoes through the trees. Douma and Laura can only stare in disbelief at the colossal creature, a beast that seems to have walked straight out of a legend. The story rewinds a few hours, showing Douma leaving the mansion for a walk and promising his maid Nicola that he'll register their new residence at the guild. He asks the mushroom fairy Noko if she wants to join him, but she coolly declines, claiming to be busy photosynthesizing, a statement Nicola immediately corrects. Annoyed, Noko demands more juice, but Nicola snaps back, telling the freeloader to get it herself. Douma lets out a tired sigh, pleading with his bickering housemates to at least try to get along while he's gone. We cut to the Rhodocina Adventurers Guild, where Guildmaster Baston is in the middle of a tense argument. An arrogant young man is insisting that Baston has a duty to protect the village, just as Douma and Laura walk through the door. The young man dismisses the newcomers with a single glance, judging them as weak and not worth his time. He introduces himself as Thomason, son of the village chief, and speaks to Douma with dripping condescension, telling him he should feel honored. Douma and Laura politely introduce themselves, unfazed by his attitude, as Thomason explains that a dangerous hellhound has appeared in the forest. He claims the village is in grave danger and that the guild is useless without an S-rank adventurer to handle the beast. Thomason's tone turns menacing as he subtly threatens Baston's family to ensure his cooperation. Before the situation can escalate, Douma calmly steps in, asking if all that's needed is for someone to defeat the hellhound. Thomason scoffs at the idea that someone like Douma could possibly succeed. Grozzo Miant suddenly appears, volunteering to accompany them on the mission, a move that clearly has a hidden motive. Grozzo introduces himself, but Douma casually mispronounces his name, much to his irritation. Baston quietly thanks Douma for intervening, and Douma reassures his friend that he's happy to help. Laura's eyes sparkle with excitement at the prospect of a good fight, and the unlikely trio heads off into the great forest. Grozzo leads the way with a confident smirk, while Douma and Laura follow, sensing that this is more than just a simple monster hunt. Douma eyes Grozzo's strange, club-like staff, finding it a very odd weapon for a swordsman to carry. Douma once again calls Grozzo by the wrong name, and the adventurer angrily corrects him. Douma casually asks if Grozzo has ever heard of someone named Bilsmy, but Grozzo scoffs, claiming such an important person would never associate with him. Douma then changes the subject, asking if Grozzo has a personal grudge against the guildmaster. Grozzo admits he sees Baston as an obstacle to his plans of making the town a better place for outcasts like himself. Douma braces himself for a long story as Grozzo begins to recount his troubled past. He tells them about his reckless youth, a life of gambling and crime that ultimately cost him his eye. He describes Rhodocina as a dead-end town filled with hopeless adventurers, all struggling to survive. But then, two mysterious figures, a supposed royal court magician and a royal knight, arrived and offered them a new hope. Douma realizes these must be Klaus's rogue students. Grozzo explains they were promised a paradise. With fiery passion, Grozzo reveals their plan: to crush the Adventurers Guild and take control of the village for themselves. Douma looks at the strange staff again. He asks if it was a gift from this royal court magician. He then reveals the staff's dark secret. It's a cursed tool that converts the user's life force into magical power. If you keep using that thing, Douma warns gravely, you will die. Grozzo's face twists in rage, furious at the insult. Don't pretend you know anything, he shouts, claiming the staff is a precious gift that represents a miracle he witnessed with his own eyes. He ignores the warning and swings his staff, declaring that his orders are to get rid of them both. You're dying here, Douma, he roars, lunging forward with murderous intent. Douma remains calm, simply stating that he tried to warn him, but Grozzo screams back that he didn't ask for any warnings. Shut it, Grozzo yells, firing a blast of dark energy. Worry about your own life. At that exact moment, a monstrous hellhound with glowing white eyes leaps from the shadows. Douma instantly understands the trap. He realizes the hellhound's appearance was perfectly timed to create a deadly distraction. He briefly recalls his intense training, where he fought hundreds of hellhounds at once. This single beast is nothing. However, he notices that this hellhound feels lifeless, more like a puppet than a living creature. Before it can attack, Laura moves like a flash of light, intercepting the beast and sending it flying, leaving Grozzo staring in disbelief. Douma catches the creature's body, revealing the magical threads controlling it. He explains that the miracle Grozzo saw was nothing more than forbidden necromancy. He easily dodges the puppet's attacks, remarking that both the staff and the spell are the work of an amateur. Suddenly, a deep rumbling shakes the entire forest as a new, immense power awakens nearby. Douma turns to Grozzo, his expression serious, sensing this new threat is on a completely different level. The ground erupts violently as a colossal shape rises from the earth, sending rocks and trees flying into the air. Douma remembers reading about a local legend, a guardian of the forest, as the furious face of the white tiger emerges from the dust. The legendary creature reveals its full form, a tiger so enormous it dwarfs the forest, its eyes glowing with ancient power. Laura and Douma look up in awe. It is the legendary white tiger, the holy beast of the forest. A terrified Grozzo asks why it's here, and Douma grimly explains that his use of forbidden necromancy has desecrated the tiger's sacred territory and awakened its fury. "Run!" Douma yells, but it's too late. Dark flames of spiritual energy erupt from the ground, trapping Grozzo. Paralyzed with fear, Grozzo is unable to move as Douma quickly casts a protective spell. The tiger unleashes a powerful blast, but Douma's barrier holds, sending a screaming Grozzo flying backward. Douma calmly states that while Grozzo will survive, his injuries are a fitting punishment for disrespecting the forest. Douma and Laura face the snarling tiger, realizing this was no mere warning. The holy beast is ready for a real fight. Douma stretches, a wide grin on his face. He accepts the beast's challenge, ready to help it blow off some steam. His eyes gleam with excitement. The epic battle between the former chief royal court mage and the legendary holy beast begins. The fight starts instantly, with Laura leaping high into the air and landing gracefully on the colossal tiger's back. Douma assesses the devastation caused by the tiger's first charge, impressed by its raw power. He signals to Laura, a determined look on his face. It's their turn to attack. The white tiger, having shaken Laura off, crouches low to the ground, its eyes fixed on Douma, ready to pounce. Douma raises his staff, unleashing a complex 7-layer magic circle. He chants the spell's name, Earth Cannon Barrage. A volley of massive, magical projectiles made of rock and earth shoot from the ground, striking the tiger with explosive force. As the barrage continues, Laura soars through the air, using the chaos as cover for her own attack. She lands a powerful, spinning kick directly on the tiger's jaw, a shockwave rippling from the impact. But an invisible magic barrier stops her sword. Douma explains that as a spirit, the tiger's magic is instantaneous and powered by the sacred ground itself. Realizing they need more power, Douma prepares an even grander spell. A massive 13-layer magic circle forms as he chants, Great Earth, Hammer Strike! The hammer slams down, but the beast roars defiantly, shattering the massive spell with its sheer strength. The tiger rears up, preparing to bring its massive paw down and crush them flat. Douma knows a simple defensive spell won't work. He has to do more than just block the attack. He casts a powerful binding spell, but the sheer weight of the tiger's paw is overwhelming, cracking the ground beneath him. "Laura!" Douma shouts, calling for her help. She joins him, and together they combine their power, unleashing a massive burst of energy that pushes the tiger's giant paw back. Seeing their combined strength works, Douma quickly devises a new strategy. Focus all their power on a single point. Understanding the plan, Laura uses magical platforms as stepping stones, launching herself higher and higher to build incredible speed and power. She dives down like a comet, her sword aimed at a single point on the tiger's magical barrier, striking it with all her might and creating a small crack. "There's a crack in its barrier. Leave the rest to me," Douma shouts, seeing his chance. He unleashes his most powerful and complex spell yet, a 29-layer composite magic circle, a level of magic almost unheard of. Chants the final word of the spell, a surprisingly simple name for such a complex technique. Child. A concentrated beam of pure, white energy erupts from his staff, piercing the crack in the tiger's barrier and striking the holy beast directly. The spell results in a colossal explosion of light, so bright it engulfs the entire forest, leaving Douma and Laura panting, completely exhausted. They look out at the result of their battle. A massive crater has been carved into the landscape where the forest once stood. Douma slumps to the ground, spent. He explains that the spell was a brand new type of magic he'd only just perfected. He is completely beaten. Laura, equally tired, simply states that she is hungry. For once, Douma wholeheartedly agrees. As they walk away, he wonders if Nicola and Noko are getting along, when he suddenly notices the tiger's striped tail trailing behind them. They turn to see the white tiger, now shrunk down to the size of a large house cat, with a dopey, peaceful expression on its face as it follows them. Douma and Laura can only stare, completely shocked and confused by this unexpected turn of events. Far away, in a dark, book-lined room, a cloaked figure with glowing eyes stares intently into a crystal ball, observing the events in Rhodocina. The scene shifts to Grozzo, now wrapped head to toe in bandages, reporting his failure to the mysterious figure, who coldly summarizes their utter defeat. A second masked figure dismisses their story of the white tiger as a childish fairy tale, adding that no human could defeat such a creature anyway. From within his bandages, Grozzo weakly protests that he isn't lying, but the figure silences him with a sharp command. The masked villain notes that regardless, Douma now knows of their plans and he must be eliminated as soon as possible. He turns to a nervous Tom, asking if the other preparations they discussed are proceeding as planned. The villain gives a final, chilling reminder to Thomason, "Never forget, you are being kept alive for that purpose." Back at Douma's mansion, a new argument has begun. Nicola and Noko are debating what to name their new tiger, one arguing for Stripes and the other for White Tiger. The debate rages on, with Nicola arguing for a cute name and Noko insisting on her more noble choice. After the battle, the tiger had shrunk down and followed them home, so they decided to keep it. Douma finishes his report to Baston, who is completely overwhelmed by the tale of necromancers, a legendary holy beast, and a new magical pet. Baston stammers that he feels a bit dizzy, clearly struggling to comprehend everything that has just happened. Later, Baston visits the mansion and finds himself in the middle of the naming dispute, as Nicola and Noko continue their argument. They immediately turn to the poor guildmaster and demand he choose which name is better. Trapped, Baston cleverly avoids taking a side and suggests they let everyone in the house decide together. Out in the yard, Douma asks Laura, who is relaxing on a flying carpet he created, for her opinion on the name. Drowsily, Laura mutters, "Pancake," and Douma sighs, telling her he was asking for a name, not a snack. The tiger playfully pounces on Laura, who is startled for a moment before she sits up, enveloped in its soft fur. Hugging the big cat, Laura suggests a new name, Fluffy, but Douma deadpans that it isn't a real name. Douma puts a finger to his chin, thinking hard, trying to combine everyone's ideas into one perfect name. After a moment of contemplation, a solution comes to him. He proposes a new name, If. Nicola's eyes light up, loving the short, cute name. Noko is also pleased, exclaiming that If sounds like an ancient word for awe, which is perfect for a white tiger. Laura smiles softly, happy that If can be a nickname for her idea, Fluffy. Baston smiles, impressed, complimenting Douma for pulling all three different ideas together so nicely. And so, the tiger is officially named. The whole household gathers around their new friend, calling him by his new name. The tiger, now named If, lets out a happy growl. Overjoyed, If suddenly grows back to his colossal size and playfully pounces on the group, sending everyone flying. Baston screams in terror, certain that his spine or ribs are about to be broken by the affectionate holy beast. 2 weeks pass peacefully, but Douma narrates that another, even more explosive visitor is about to arrive on their doorstep. On a hill overlooking the village, Princess Alexandra and Natalia have finally arrived. Alexandra declares triumphantly that she can finally see Rhodocina. She looks out at the town with determination, vowing that she is finally going to see her beloved Professor Douma. Natalia offers a word of caution, reminding the princess that it has been 6 years, but Alexandra waves off her concerns, completely confident in the man she remembers. She closes her eyes, lost in a fond and slightly inaccurate memory of the last time they parted ways. In her romanticized memory, Douma points at her and promises, "I will definitely come to fetch you one day." As Alexandra skips happily toward the village, Natalia sighs, thinking that her lady is completely blinded by love. Natalia's expression hardens. She makes a silent, deadly vow. If Lord Douma proves to be unworthy of her lady's affection, she will eliminate him. Entering Rhodocina, Alexandra looks around with a smile, finding the so-called backwater frontier town to be quite charming. Her pleasant mood is soured when she spots a couple of rough-looking thugs loitering on the street. The thugs notice the two beautiful newcomers and approach them, offering to show them around. One of the thugs brazenly puts a hand on Alexandra's shoulder, only to be instantly repelled by a powerful magic barrier. Alexandra coolly brushes her shoulder off. "Don't you dare touch me with those filthy hands," she says, her voice cold as ice. "I have a date with Professor Douma." Enraged by her rejection, the thugs yell for their companions to grab her, but a calm voice orders them to stop. A lone figure walks towards them through a swirling vortex of energy, sighing that he can't even come down to the village without running into trouble. The thugs are terrified by the newcomer's immense presence, stammering his name in fear. "Sir!" The man is revealed to be Klaus of the Battle Arts, a legendary war hero and the hated enemy who turned the tide of the war 10 years ago. Klaus seems to sense Allegra's presence, but dismisses her as just a little girl. In a blur of motion, Klaus draws his sword and swings it directly at Alexandra's neck, causing Natalia to cry out in alarm. The blade stops a hair's breadth from her skin, yet she doesn't even flinch. Klaus is impressed, noting that she is clearly not just a little girl. Before Klaus can react, Natalia springs into action, her own daggers drawn to defend the princess. "Show some respect!" Natalia yells, holding her weapons at the ready. "You stand before Her Imperial Highness, Princess Alexandra!" Klaus smirks, now understanding the source of her incredible confidence. Alexandra calmly tells Natalia to put her weapons away, reminding the war hero that as a hero of the kingdom, he is on their side. She continues with unwavering confidence, stating that even her father, the Emperor, admitted that Klaus outclassed him in skill. She looks him in the eye and asks with a gentle smile, "A man like that would never swing his sword for the wrong cause, right?" Klaus lets out a short laugh, sheathing his sword and remarking that he keeps running into outrageous girls lately. He apologizes to the princess, explaining that he had to test her to see if she was an enemy. Alexandra's eyes light up with realization and excitement. She exclaims that this must mean he knows her teacher. With her suspicion confirmed, Alexandra's demeanor flips instantly, her previous intensity gone. She clasps Klaus's hands gratefully, gushing that he's the second most wonderful man she's ever met, right after her teacher. Klaus later tells his friend Baston about the encounter, explaining that he apologized to the princess. He then realizes his mistake. He completely forgot to mention Douma's roommate, Laura, to the princess. Re-energized and with her destination confirmed, Alexandra grabs Natalia and takes off at full speed, shouting that she's finally going to see him. She points excitedly towards the large mansion on Ghost Hill, confirming with the locals that it's where Douma is living. Now that she's close, Alexandra's eyes glow with magic as she eagerly uses a remote viewing spell to see his face. Her magical vision focuses on the mansion grounds, where she sees Douma standing very close to Laura, gently holding her face in his hands. Alexandra's loving expression instantly turns to one of shocked, twitching rage. Without a second thought, she unleashes a massive beam of energy that shoots across the sky and slams into the ground right next to the mansion. Back at the mansion, Douma is holding a small dart he just caught out of the air during a training session with Laura. They both look up at the sky, confused by the sudden explosion and the glittering dust that falls from it. A furious voice screams from above. A vengeful Alexandra hurtles towards them like a meteor. Douma and Laura are completely stunned, letting out a synchronized cry of shock. Alexandra crashes down in front of them, pointing an accusing finger at a baffled Douma. A magical binding ring appears around Douma, locking him in place as he exclaims in panic. She flies at him, delivering a furious kick that sends him to the ground while accusing him of being about to kiss another girl. Douma shouts from the ground, asking what she is even talking about, as Alexandra, with tears in her eyes, calls him the worst. He tries to explain that Laura is just wearing her usual training outfit, but Alexandra doesn't believe him, accusing him of making excuses. Just then, Noko and Nicola appear at the door, drawn by the commotion, and politely ask if they have guests. Alexandra stops her tirade, her eyes widening as she sees the two small, non-human figures. Her mind short-circuits at the sight of the little mushroom girl and the maid, and she screams, "You even have a child already!" Douma, sweating nervously, tries to pause the chaos and get some answers. He starts by asking the most important question first, looking at the furious princess who attacked him. "Who are you?" The question hits Alexandra like a physical blow. The world seems to shatter around her as she realizes that after 6 long years, he doesn't even remember her. Overwhelmed by shock and heartbreak, she collapses, groaning that she hates this and should never have come. Douma tries to calm her down, calling her Sasha, but she retorts angrily, telling him not to use her name so casually when he clearly forgot who she was. He tries to backtrack, claiming he didn't remember her because she mentioned his promise to come for her, which he doesn't recall saying. Alexandra looks up at him, heartbroken, whispering that he forgot that too. Douma waves his hands frantically, blushing as he tries to explain that he didn't forget, it's just that she has really, really changed. Alexandra's anger melts away, replaced by a hopeful blush as his words sink in. She blushes furiously, completely misinterpreting his fumbling words as a confession of her beauty, much to the annoyance of everyone watching. Nicola finally breaks the silence, asking Douma who this lady is, prompting him to begin. Introductions. He introduces Princess Sasha Alexandra, his old classmate, who proudly adds that she's his disciple, and then introduces her attendant, Natalia. Nicola, Noko, and if the White Tiger then introduce themselves to the newcomers. Alexandra and Natalia are completely bewildered by the strange collection of residents. Finally, Douma introduces Laura, explaining that she's a royal knight. Alexandra's friendly demeanor vanishes. She takes a step forward, her eyes narrowed. "So, you're Laura." The two women face each other, a tense silence hanging in the air as they size each other up. Breaking the tension, Alexandra extends a hand with a warm smile, saying Renizia asked her to take good care of Laura. Laura simply says, "Yeah," and takes the offered hand. The moment their hands touch, Alexandra's smile turns into a competitive smirk. She unleashes a powerful grip, intending to judge Laura's strength for herself. Her confidence is instantly shattered as her own hand is crushed by Laura's immense, effortless strength. Crying in agony, Alexandra drops to her knees, begging Laura to let go. Laura apologizes, explaining it was just a reflex. Later, inside the mansion, Alexandra is nursing her crushed hand while Nicola offers medicine, and Natalia reminds her lady she brought this on herself. A blushing Alexandra admits she was foolish to pick a fight with Laura, and to change the subject, Laura asks Nicola for a bath. Nicola turns to Alexandra and politely asks if Lady Sasha would like a bath as well. Before Alexandra can answer, Douma gets up to leave, but Nicola quickly intercepts him, insisting he stay and rest. He explains that he's run out of materials and needs to go buy more, promising to be back by sunset. Douma walks alone down a quiet forest path, heading back to the village. Hidden in the bushes, one of the thugs from before watches him leave, noting how convenient it is that he is now alone. The leader of the thugs, Garza, confirms with his men that the woman who beat them up is still in the manor, ignoring their warnings about Klaus. Standing in shadow, Garza scoffs at the warning. "Who cares about Klaus?" he declares. "Thanks to the power I got from that person, he's no match for me now." Back at the mansion, the 4 women, Alexandra, Laura, Natalia, and Nicola, are all relaxing together in the large bath. Nicola sighs, regretting her casual invitation as the atmosphere grows thick with tension from Alexandra's glaring. Alexandra finally breaks the silence, bluntly asking Laura what her relationship is with Douma. When Laura seems confused, Alexandra passionately explains her 6-year love for Douma and how she ran away from home just to be with him. Her voice cracks with emotion as she declares she could never accept him living with another girl, causing Nicola to panic about the love triangle. Laura, ever innocent, finally seems to understand, asking with a smile, "Oh, so Sasha, you like Douma?" Alexandra confidently declares that even if Laura and Douma are in a relationship, she has no intention of giving up. Her bold declaration only makes Laura more flustered and embarrassed. Alexandra presses on, demanding to know what kind of relationship they even have. Natalia quietly reminds her lady of what she had told her earlier. She repeats her warning, 6 years is a long time, and Douma may no longer be worthy of the princess. Hearing Douma spoken of so poorly, the normally calm Laura puffs out her cheeks in anger. Natalia is startled by Laura's sudden and fierce defense of Douma. Even Alexandra is taken aback by the normally stoic knight's burst of emotion. A flustered Natalia quickly apologizes profusely for her harsh words. Laura and Alexandra share a look, a silent truce forming between them, founded on their mutual respect for Douma. They stand up in the bath, their rivalry momentarily forgotten, united as allies. Meanwhile, Douma finishes his shopping in a quiet Rhodocina alley. With everything he needs, he decides it's time to head back home. As he turns a corner, he runs right into Klaus. Klaus greets him and mentions his encounter with Princess Sasha. He claps Douma on the shoulder, teasing him about being so popular with the ladies, but a flustered Douma insists it's not like that. Douma's expression turns serious as he asks Klaus about his meeting with Baston. Klaus confirms they were discussing their plan to take down the rogue magician and knight who are manipulating the local thugs. He reveals that Baston has gathered enough evidence to request official support from the kingdom, which will give them the authority to act. Klaus explains that their little organization will be finished once the official order comes through, but first he wants to try and save his former students. He worries about his second-in-command, a skilled but hot-headed man he left in charge. "I just hope he hasn't done anything stupid," Klaus says, looking toward the sky with a sense of dread. At that very moment, outside the mansion, Klaus's reckless second-in-command, Garza, points at the house, ready to cause trouble. Cloaked in dark energy, Garza orders his men to attack. One of his men questions the order, asking if he really plans to burn down the house. The thug reminds Garza that their mysterious leader forbade them from killing without permission. He declares he's had enough and is leaving. As he and another turn to go, Garza's cold voice stops them. "Get back here, you punks!" Garza sneers at their defiance, asking if they are truly refusing to follow his orders. His eyes burn with fury. He will not allow anyone to look down on him. He leaps forward to attack them, intent on teaching them a lesson for their insubordination. But Laura's voice from the roof stops him, telling the thugs to take their internal squabbles elsewhere. A cruel smile spreads across Garza's face, delighted that his target has come to him. Alexandra appears beside Laura, hands on her hips, declaring that the thugs are the ones who are about to be punished. Garza scoffs, readying his cursed staff to take them both on. Laura recognizes the dangerous weapon and warns Alexandra to be careful, but the princess charges forward, eager to prove herself. She unleashes a powerful blast of wind magic, yelling for him to take this. Garza effortlessly deflects the spell with a swing of his staff, creating a swirling vortex of energy. Alexandra watches in shock as her own magic is twisted and turned against her. She is thrown back by her own amplified spell, stunned that such a powerful magician exists in this remote place. Laura immediately rushes in to defend her, ready to fight. She clashes with Garza, but he easily parries her swift sword strikes. Both Alexandra and Laura are baffled by his skill, wondering why someone so powerful would be working with common thugs. Laura realizes the truth. The magic isn't his own but comes from the cursed staff, which turns his life force into power. She can see the toll the staff has taken on him. His face is gaunt and aged. Laura assesses their opponent. His swordsmanship is A rank, but with the staff's magic, he is easily S rank, or perhaps even stronger than that. Alexandra gets to her feet, a determined fire in her eyes. This is exactly the kind of challenge she needs, and she tells Laura to stay back. But Laura refuses, stating that she will be the one to handle this. She acknowledges that an S-rank opponent is a serious threat, even for a royal knight, but that is not the point. Alexandra insists that since these thugs are here because of her, she must be the one to defeat them to earn affection points with her teacher. Laura glances down and notices Garza's two underlings are already knocked out cold on the ground. Garza sneers at his fallen men, calling them absolutely useless. In a fit of rage, he turns to eliminate his failed subordinates for their weakness, but Alexandra intercepts his attack, saving them just in time. "What are you doing?" she demands, asking how he could attack his own comrades. Garza appears before her in an instant. "Comrades?" he mocks. He strikes her with incredible speed, sending her flying backward. "Don't make me laugh," he says coldly. "They're just tools, and I have no use for broken tools." Alexandra can't believe his cruelty, and asks if this is what his boss, Klaus, would approve of. Garza laughs, calling Klaus an old fossil and declaring his true loyalty is to Lord Bilsmy and Lord Zedden. Laura confirms that these are the same imposters they've been investigating. She recognizes that the cursed staff is their trademark weapon. That's right, Garza boasts. Lord Bilsmy gave me this power. Soon I'll take Klaus's place myself. Douma, having just returned, takes in the chaotic scene with a tired sigh. So much for a quiet frontier. This place is a war zone. Filled with righteous anger, Alexandra prepares to fight seriously, a two-layer composite magic circle forming around her. She unleashes powerful gravity magic, crushing the ground around Garza. He strains against the immense, crushing pressure. Alexandra taunts him, saying he's helpless without his staff to swing around. But she is shocked when he begins to push back against her powerful spell. He is fighting the gravity head-on, willing to destroy his own body to break free. Laura warns her to be careful, but Alexandra, driven by pride, tells her to stay out of it. I have to be the one to beat him, she insists desperately. Otherwise, I can't face my teacher. Laura looks on with concern, understanding her rival's need to prove herself. With a final, desperate roar, Garza puts every last bit of his life force into breaking the spell. Alexandra watches in horror as her gravity magic completely shatters. Freed, Garza launches a devastating attack that rips through the forest toward her. Trapped and unable to cast another spell in time, Alexandra knows she cannot block the attack. She closes her eyes, apologizing to her teacher for her ultimate failure. But at the last second, Laura sweeps in, scooping Alexandra up and leaping to safety as the attack explodes behind them. They land on the mansion roof, and Laura asks if she's okay. Flustered at being carried so ungracefully, Alexandra complains that Laura should have carried her princess style. Why did you save me? She asks. Laura replies, I told you, I see you as my rival. Laura looks at her and adds that since Sasha wanted to get along, that makes them friends. Alexandra calls her an idiot, but her tone is soft. Laura just replies, rude. A blushing Alexandra finally thanks her, admitting she couldn't bear the thought of her teacher being sad if something happened to her. Below them, Garza's body contorts as the staff's magic completely consumes him, transforming him. Laura explains that he has become a mindless berserker, controlled by the staff's dark power. Alexandra's resolve returns. She still wants to be the one to defeat him, but this time she swallows her pride. But I can't do it alone. Please, lend me your strength. Laura looks at her new friend and, with a determined nod, agrees to help. With a new plan, Alexandra asks Laura to pin him down, and the royal knight leaps into battle. Laura engages the berserker, her incredible speed and strength keeping him occupied. High above, Alexandra focuses, preparing a complex spell, determined not to fail this time. The berserker unleashes eruption magic, sending chunks of rock flying, and Alexandra tells Laura to fall back. A memory flashes through Alexandra's mind, a young Douma teaching her the difficult art of composite magic. She remembers how she struggled, unable to even form a simple two-layer circle. She remembers Douma's encouraging words, telling her that practice is the key to unlocking her potential. She remembers complaining that she wasn't a genius like him, and how he teased her, asking what happened to the confident Crimson Princess. Inspired by the memory, Alexandra floats among the rocks launched by the berserker. Watch me, teacher, she thinks, successfully creating a stable three-layer composite magic circle, a feat she once thought impossible. The berserker sees her plan. She's going to use his own attack against him. Like I'd let you, he roars, charging forward to stop her. But Laura is there to block his path, holding him back. Now! Alexandra yells, chaining her eruption magic into gravity magic, supercharging the floating rocks. The berserker can only scream in rage as the massive, heavy boulders rain down upon him, crushing him under their immense weight. Laura comments that he's as flat as a pancake, but Alexandra replies that she controlled the impact just enough so he wouldn't be truly crushed. With the battle won, Alexandra decides it's time to hand the criminals over to the local guild. She turns to Laura and once again extends her hand for a handshake. Confused, Laura reminds her they already shook hands, but Alexandra insists they do it again, properly this time, with no tricks. She wants a real handshake, a symbol of their newfound respect. Nice to meet you, Sasha, Laura says with a small smile as they shake hands. Laura, Alexandra replies, but their rivalry is far from over. Alexandra declares that when it comes to her teacher, she definitely won't lose. Klaus appears, shouting a booming apology for all the trouble his men have caused. He bows deeply to Douma, taking full responsibility, but Douma just seems tired, telling Klaus he's not really bothered by it all. Back at the mansion, Laura explains to a horrified Alexandra that her reckless actions could have ended the truce and started a war. A guilty Douma wants to apologize to the princess for not recognizing her and asks where she is. He finds her in a room, enthusiastically taking glamour shots of Laura posing in a new outfit. Alexandra is completely fawning over Laura, showing her the pictures and calling her adorable as Douma and Natalia watch the two former rivals become fast friends. Douma still wants to apologize properly, so he asks Laura to get Alexandra for him. He tries to tell Alexandra that it wasn't really Klaus's fault, but is interrupted by a yelp from the other room. Deciding to let it go for now, he opens the door to her room to check on her. He walks in on a very compromising scene. Laura is pinning a blushing Alexandra to the bed. "Don't be so rough," Alexandra protests weakly. "There's no way I can beat you in strength." They both freeze as they see Douma and Natalia staring at them, completely stunned by the scene. A flustered Douma slowly backs out of the room, muttering about how love takes many forms. "Don't get the wrong idea," Alexandra screams after him, "and knock next time." Laura, with a deadpan expression, explains that since Sasha made a toy out of her, she is now making a toy out of Sasha. From the hallway, Douma yells at them to cover up, adding that he doesn't mind since it's just them, which leaves Alexandra stunned. Laura puts a finger to her lips, pondering his words and asking Alexandra just how far she and Douma have gone. Suddenly, Laura's older sister Renesia appears, her face a mask of fury, demanding to know what Douma has done to her innocent little sister. Alexandra then grabs Douma from behind, shaking him and demanding to know what he meant by his earlier comments. She continues her tirade, questioning if he's even a man if he feels nothing seeing a lovely girl like Laura in her underwear. Douma can only make a strangled noise, completely flustered by the accusations, while Laura just blinks at him innocently. Alexandra watches them, growing more irritated by the second at their sudden, flustered closeness. Deciding she's had enough, Alexandra dramatically throws off her robe, revealing black lace lingerie. "It's not fair if it's only Laura," she declares. "Look at me too." She strikes a pose, nervously waiting for his reaction and telling him to say something. Douma stares at her with a serious, analytical expression, making her even more nervous. "Sasha," he begins, then asks with genuine curiosity, "Did you put on weight?" A horrified Alexandra is about to explode, but Douma quickly tries to explain that she used to be too skinny, and he was worried, earning him a furious, "Drop dead," from Renesia. Sometime later, a defeated Alexandra sits with her arms crossed, grumbling that Douma has always been this clueless, as Douma sits tied up in the background. She complains that she's trying to help Laura expand her wardrobe, but Douma and Laura both chime in that they own multiple sets of the same clothes. Alexandra ignores them and excitedly shows a very unimpressed Douma all the pictures she took of Laura, admitting she got carried away. She claps her hands and announces that Laura's fashion show is back on, much to Natalia's dismay. Laura stands stiffly, modeling a large formal gown that looks a bit too big for her. Alexandra gushes over how cute she looks and shoves the phone in Douma's face, asking his opinion. Douma gives his honest feedback. Heavy, ornate outfits don't suit Laura's practical nature, and she's just being used as a dress-up doll. The princess is not happy with his critique and glares at him. Laura is forced to try on a variety of other dresses from Alex's wardrobe, all of which look awkward and ill-fitting. After a long and exhausting session, a weary Douma asks what Laura is supposed to wear to finally satisfy her. Finally, Laura appears again, but this time she's wearing her own comfortable, familiar adventuring outfit. Both Douma and Alexandra look up, surprised by her choice. Laura gives a small, confident twirl, clearly more comfortable and radiant in her own clothes. Douma smiles, a genuine warmth in his eyes, and tells her that her usual outfit really does suit her the best. Alexandra watches the tender moment, a storm cloud of jealousy brewing over her in the background. She flops dramatically onto a bed, sighing that she feels like going back to the Empire, much to her friend's confusion. But her mood swings again, and she decides to stay, demanding that her teacher teach her some new magic. A weary Douma has no choice but to agree. As they study a spellbook together, Douma gets a strange feeling that he's forgetting something important. The story cuts to outside the village chief's manor, where Klaus stands guard, growing restless and worrying that his failure has reignited the war. A quiet street in Rotosina is shown, the peaceful atmosphere hiding a growing tension. A crowd of villagers has gathered, murmuring amongst themselves and watching the strange new arrivals. They watch as armed officials from Gruden, led by the imposing figure of the fake royal knight, Zedin, march towards the village chief's manor. Inside the Adventurers Guild, Baston closes up for the day, telling his staff they can all clock out. One of his staff asks him for a drink, but Baston politely turns him down, saying his wife is waiting. His colleague teases him for being such a devoted husband as Baston waves and heads home. Alone at his desk, Baston worries about the village chief's meeting with the newly arrived delegation from the kingdom. He gazes out the window at the town he loves, reflecting on its peaceful nature. He reaffirms his desire to bring back the days when the people of Rotosina lived close to nature and supported each other. Meanwhile, the fake royal court, magician Bilsmy, decides to investigate the situation at the chief's manor himself. He senses a presence and turns to find Baston standing right behind him, startling him. Suddenly, the guild door opens, and Douma appears, his face hidden in shadow. He greets Baston, his voice calm but his eyes cold and menacing as he asks if he is heading home. Baston, surprised to see him, explains that the village is on edge because of the envoy's arrival and he figured Douma might know something. Douma says he's on his way to the chief's manor and asks Baston to join him, explaining that this envoy is the result of them reporting the imposters. As they walk through the dark streets, Douma explains that if all goes well, the thugs and their leaders will be wiped out for good. Baston looks around with a fond expression, saying how much he likes this village. He reveals that he was once an S-rank adventurer who chose to retire as guildmaster here because he fell in love with the town's peaceful atmosphere long ago. The man he thinks is Douma looks at him with cold, emotionless eyes and recites a chilling proverb about how even the greatest of heroes eventually grow weak. In a sudden flash of light, Baston is struck down from behind by a magical attack. A dark silhouette shows a mage impaling a swordsman from the back. Baston collapses, a magical blade piercing his chest. He looks up in utter shock and betrayal at the man he thought was his friend. The figure standing over him is not Douma. It is Bilsmy, the fake royal court magician, who had used magic to disguise himself. And he looks down at the fallen guildmaster with a cruel, triumphant smile.